As the black mineral tide surged forward, Lin Yin knelt before a half-collapsed mine tunnel entrance. His fingers dug deep into cracked steel girders. Suspended from the far end of the girder hung half a transport platform. 3 people lay sprawled atop it. The person on the outermost side had lost half their shoulder, blood dripping steadily down the metal plate. In the middle sat a rookie miner paralyzed with terror, face caked in gray dust, mouth agape, too stunned to even weep. The girl furthest inside clutched a red cord so tight her wrist bore deep blue indentations. It was Lin Tingxia's bracelet. Lin Yan's eyes burned red, his throat scratchy as if lined with sand. "Brother." The girl's voice below was nearly swallowed by the mine tide's thunderous roar, only a broken tone cutting through the din. "Leave first." Lin Yan said nothing, stretching his right hand another half-inch forward. The skin of his palm was already raw and torn, blood mixed with crushed gravel, making the metal slick and unsteady. He knew the steel beam would not hold much longer. The rock strata overhead split open wider by the second, and a secondary collapse loomed in the main tunnel to the left. The black tide would fill this branch passage in 10 seconds flat. Still, he refused to let go. He had made countless such choices in his past life, deciding who to abandon, who to rescue first, which passage might lead to safety, which tunnel mouth was doomed to cave in, which crews would never surface again. The faster he learned to calculate odds, the longer he survived. Yet as the years dragged on, everyone around him slipped away one by one. First his master, then old he, who had mapped tunnels beside him. Eventually, Lin Tingxia. He had thought he'd grown numb to loss, but in this moment, he realized he never had. The transport platform let out a shrill, tortured metal whine. The rookie miner finally snapped, scrambling inward in hysterical sobs. His flailing elbow jostled the wounded man on the edge, and the entire platform lurched downward a sharp notch. Veins bulged violently across Lin Yan's knuckles. He ground his teeth so hard his jaw creaked, nearly dragged bodily over the tunnel's edge. "Stay still," he roared, his voice raw and ragged. No one listened. Or rather, none of them were capable of rational thought anymore. The mine tide was no ordinary floodwater. Heavier than water, swifter than wind, alive in a way molten rock never was. Black mineral sand mixed with jagged crystal fragments crashed against the mine walls, grinding together like rows of gnashing teeth. Anyone caught in its current would be ground to bone dust without a trace. Lin Yan glanced ahead. The black tide had rounded the corner. His mind turned unervingly clear. They were out of time. The thought brought no fear, only a hollow ache in his chest, as if something vital inside him had leaked away entirely. Lin Tingxiao was still trapped there, her face smudged gray with dust, yet her eyes blazed with desperate resolve. She did not scream for help, only looped the red cord tighter around her wrist, terrified that, if she let go, her brother would never find her. Staring at that thin red string, a memory crashed over Lin Yan unbidden. He'd bought it for her at a shabby street market in the shallow mining district the winter prior. It had cost just 5 yuan. She'd complained it was ugly, claiming she didn't want it, yet wore it every single day for half a year afterward. "Brother," she called out once more. This time, Lin Yan heard her perfectly. "Don't waste your life on me." His Adam's apple bobbed, and a bitter, twisted smile tugged at his lips. A hideous, broken smile. Nonsense. The main steel support beam split clean, apart the very next second. The black mineral tide crashed straight into him. All Lin Yan could do was hurl his weight forward, trying to brace against the inevitable collapse. He failed to haul them to safety, only catching a glimpse of the red cord flaring bright amid endless black, like a white-hot needle stabbed straight through his eyes into his brain. Then came the sickening spiral of weightlessness. Rubble slammed into his body. Thunder filled every inch of his ears. Air was crushed from his lungs bit by bit, his sternum threatening to split open, the metallic tang of blood flooding his throat. Lin Yan tumbled through the churning black tide. Yet his consciousness remained startlingly sharp. One realization cut through the chaos. The third mineral tide was far too early. It had arrived 7 hours ahead of schedule. This was no accident. The thought had barely formed when his skull slammed hard against a solid object, and darkness swallowed his vision whole. His phone vibrated once more. A shrill notification tone pierced his eardrums. Lin Yan jolted awake. Cold air blasted against his cheeks. Overhead hung the harsh white fluorescent lights of a mall lounge, air conditioning units droning in the background. Nearby, a shopper grumbled about weak cell service. A milk tea cup clinked softly against the tabletop. No black tide. No collapsing tunnels. No hot, fetid mine air thick with rust and rot. Lin Yin sat rigidly, his body coiled taut like a fraying wire, chest heaving violently. His hands still curled in the grip heat, used to cling to the steel beam. Yet his fingernails were spotlessly clean, free of blood and stone dust alike. The phone buzzed again. Its screen lit up. A text message popped into view. "Brother, have you finished your meeting? I'm at the dessert counter on the 3rd floor. My milk tea is melting fast. Sender, Lin Tingxia." Lin Yin stared at the words, his breath catching in his throat. 3rd floor dessert counter. Milk tea melting fast. This was the last ordinary text Lin Tingxia had sent him, mere minutes before the axial shift that shattered the world in his past life. He snatched up the phone to check the timestamp. 14:20, June 17, 2031. Lin Yan's pupils constricted sharply. 20 past 2 in the afternoon. The first ground fissure would tear open in exactly 10 minutes. He lifted his gaze. The mall's central atrium screen cycled through cosmetic advertisements, a hostess's cloyingly sweet voice echoing over the public speakers. Below, a child wailed for ice cream. A couple argued beside the escalators. A security guard leaned against a pillar scrolling short videos. The entire space hummed with mundane normalcy, a calm that curdled cold dread in his bones. This exact place, this exact time. In his past life, the ground trembled once at 14:30 sharp. Then the glass ceiling of the atrium shattered entirely. The main escalators jammed solid, and crowds stampeded instinctively toward the main entrance and underground parking garage. The front gate caved in 3 minutes later, and the first wave of jagged rock slurry flooded the parking lot within 5. To survive, one had to head deeper underground, down to the loading bay, escape through the freight passage, then traverse an abandoned mine shaft choked with acid mist and falling rock. It was the only viable path to safety. Lin Yin squeezed his eyes shut, his temples throbbing fiercely. This was no dream, no deathbed hallucination. He had truly traveled back in time. The shopper's complaint droned on beside him. "Terrible cell service, keeps cutting out. The mall's AC is cranked way too low today. We'll make the 3 o'clock movie, stop rushing me." Every line matched word for word what he'd heard. In his previous timeline, Lin Yin stood abruptly, his chair scraping a shrill line across the tile floor. Several nearby patrons shot him curious glances. He paid them no mind, rapidly scanning his surroundings. Exits, escalators, fire doors, the closest staff passage. The mall's structural layout, the custodian closet's location, the fastest route from this lounge to the 3rd floor dessert counter. All the hard-won knowledge forged through countless near-death experiences surfaced, crystal clear in his mind. He knew which escalator would lock solid after the first tremor. He knew which nearby fire door led to a dead end despite its short distance. He knew which glass panel would shatter first. And he knew that if Lin Tingxiao waited here as she had in the past, he would watch her die a second time in no more than 15 minutes. He could not let that happen. Never. Again. Lin Yin grabbed the bottle of mineral water on the table and chugged half of it in one go. The icy liquid rushed down his throat, dulling the roiling panic churning in his chest. He pulled out his phone and dialed Lin Tingxiao's number immediately. The call connected on the first ring. "Brother?" Through the receiver, her voice carried the lazy drawl of someone who'd just woken up. "You said you'd only take 20 minutes. My milk tea's almost gone warm. If you don't hurry, I'll drink it all myself. Stay exactly where you are." Lin Yin's tone was heavy, grave. A beat of silence on the line. "Huh. Do not wander off. Do not step onto any escalators. Do not look toward the central atrium. Stand still and wait for me." "Brother, what's wrong with you? Just listen to me." Lin Tingxiao fell, quiet for 2 full seconds, evidently unsettled by his uncharacteristic severity. She mumbled a soft, "Okay." Lin Yin hung up and spun on his heel to leave. This was not enough. Merely getting her away from the dessert counter would not keep them alive. 3 critical supplies determined survival in the initial disaster: miner's headlamp, emergency pickaxe, water filtration pouches. Without a headlamp, the pitch-black stretches of the underground shaft were impassable. Without an emergency pickaxe, blocked tunnels meant certain death. Without filtration pouches, even reaching the underground levels would only mean dying of thirst. In his past life, all these supplies had been stored in the mall's staff quarters. Further down, beside the underground loading ramp, ran the abandoned mine shaft. The ventilation draft from that shaft would cut out for precisely 37 seconds right before it became accessible. If they slipped underground during that narrow window, they could bypass the first hollow collapse zone and reach the stable shelter where the earliest wave of survivors had held out. Lin Yin paused mid-step, glancing down at his palms. Smooth, unmarred, no trace of dried blood etched into his skin. Yet deep within his metacarpals, he could still feel the dull, splitting agony of the beam tearing at his bones. The fleeting sight of the red cord slipping from his grasp lingered vivid in his memory as well. 10 minutes remaining. No, barely even 10 minutes now. First, rush to the third floor to retrieve his sister. Take the staff passage to the storage closet. Grab the headlamp, pickaxe and filtration pouches. Then hit that 37-second window to descend into the old mine shaft. If they moved without pause, they might live. One misstep, and everything would repeat all over again. Lin Yin tossed the empty mineral water bottle into a waste bin and broke into a sprint. This lifetime, he would not only carry Lin Tingxiao to safety, he would seize hold of that single path to survival, forged by the lives of the first wave of survivors, and never let it slip away. The raw, scraping ache left by the steel beam still clung to his bones. The flash of the red cord vanishing into blackness haunted his vision too. He slowly curled his fingers into a tight fist. In his past life, he had always told himself to pause, to plan for a better solution. Every time he hesitated, all that remained for him afterward were corpses and the bitter weight of too little, too late. This second chance, he would not merely survive. He would clamp down on that soul lifeline and never release it. The fastest route from the third-floor dessert counter to the staff passage took 2 minutes and 40 seconds. The custodian supply closet sat directly behind the freight elevator, housing the headlamps and emergency pickaxes. The main escalators would stall at the first tremor. The massive crystal chandelier hanging over the atrium would crash through the first-floor guardrail during the second shockwave. Once that happened, escaping with Lin Tingxiao would mean fighting through a crushing stampede of panicking shoppers. Lin Yan's gaze darted sideways, snatching a plastic cleaning warning sign leaning against the wall and tucking it under his arm. Lightweight, rigid, its sharp, hard plastic edge could serve as a makeshift tool. Hardly a proper weapon, yet far better than empty hands. A faint, low rumble echoed from far underground all at once, as if some colossal beast had shifted its weight deep beneath the earth's crust. A young child beside him tilted their head to stare at the ceiling, biting into an ice cream cone as they asked their mother, "Mommy, did the building just shake?" The woman laughed and shook her head, dismissing the sensation. Lin Yin was already sprinting toward the third floor. 10 minutes left. Enough time to save one person. Enough time to claim the first critical step of this new timeline. As Lin Yin burst into motion, the mall blazed with the unknowing brightness of an ordinary daytime. Advertising screens flashed skincare commercials. Lines snaked out the doors of milk tea shops. Escalators carried slow streams of shoppers up and down, their shadows gliding sluggishly across the tile. Only a faint, almost imperceptible tremor rippled through the floor far below, like something vast stirring in the dark beneath the ground. Lin Yin never slowed his pace, the hard plastic edge of the warning sign digging into his forearm. He headed straight for the nearest upward escalator, vaulting over the queuing rail mid-sprint. A young couple collided with him, yelling sharp complaints. "Watch where you're going." Lin Yin did not spare them a backward glance. Third-floor dessert counter. In his past life, he had arrived 4 minutes too late. This time, he would not waste a single second. The escalator had barely carried him halfway upward when a low, resonant hum vibrated through the entire mall. Steel girders and glass panels strained under unseen pressure, a dull thrumming settling heavy in everyone's chest, as though a giant metal lid was being pried upward from beneath the foundation. Lin Yan's heart sank. The first tremor was arriving. He stepped onto the escalator's metal edge and sprinted upward along its stationary side panel. Shoppers behind him shrieked, shouting warnings to stop his reckless dash. He scrambled onto the third floor, his eyes sweeping the dessert area until they locked onto a tall window-side table. Lin Tingxiao sat there. Her untouched milk tea rested before her as she stared down at her phone. She wore a plain white short-sleeved top, a denim jacket tied around her waist, and the red cord bracelet still wrapped securely around her wrist, exactly as she had appeared when sending that final text in his past life. Lin Yan's knees nearly buckled beneath him. She was alive, truly alive, right in front of him. Lin Tingxiao lifted her head, freezing the moment she spotted him. "Brother, why are you running so frantically?" Her words died halfway out when she caught sight of his ashen, terror-stricken expression. "Why is your face so pale?" Lin Yin closed the distance in 2 strides and clamped a firm grip around her wrist. "Come with me now." "Wait a minute, I just got my milk tea." "Leave it. Have you lost your mind over that meeting?" Lin Tingxia stumbled as he hauled her to her feet, nearly tipping her chair over, and frowned in confusion. "What's going on? Explain this to me first." Lin Yin stared at her, his throat tight. and burning. In his past life, he'd wanted to explain everything too. To warn her the ground would split open. The glass would rain down like blades. The main entrance would collapse. That delay meant certain death. But he had never gotten the chance to speak a word back then. By the time he'd reached this spot, the first tremor had shattered the entire glass facade into a lethal shower of shards. We don't have time for explanations. Lin Yan lowered his voice to an urgent whisper, his grip on her wrist unyielding. Lin Tingxiao, trust me just this once. If you don't come with me, you will die. Lin Tingxiao went rigid with shock. She had known her brother her whole life. He never joked about matters of life and death. Yet she had never seen him like this, as though he'd clawed his way out of a raging inferno, fire still burning wild in his eyes. She opened her mouth to press for answers, when a dull vibration hummed up through the soles of her shoes. The entire floor shuddered violently the next instant. Overhead light fixtures swayed wildly. The dessert shop's glass display cabinets let out a shrill crack, their cabinet doors flying open with a sharp snap. Rows of glass tumblers crashed to the floor, shattering into hundreds of pieces. Far down the corridor, screams erupted, and multiple advertising light boxes crashed from the ceiling, landing at the edge of the downward escalator amid the crowd. A split second of dead silence blanketed them all. Then chaos exploded everywhere. Earthquake. Run for the exits. Hurry, move faster. Crowds surged instinctively toward the main entrance. Shoppers abandoned bags. Parents clutched screaming children. Others sobbed as they shoved their way forward. The narrow walkway outside the dessert counter clogged instantly, overturned tables and chairs littering the ground. Lin Tingxiao's face drained of all color. Brother, duck your head. Lin Yan pulled her tight against his chest, swinging the plastic warning sign sideways to batter aside an overturned high-top table. He braced his shoulder against the press of bodies to cut through the edge of the stampede. Stay close to me. Do not let go of my hand. Instead of charging toward the thickest cluster of fleeing shoppers, he dragged Lin Tingxia diagonally toward a side corridor of the mall. Fewer people fled this way, and it grew darker, deeper into the building. Lin Tingxia stumbled as she was pulled along, glancing back toward the main entrance out of instinct. The space was packed shoulder to shoulder, a writhing mass of panicked humanity growing, denser and more chaotic by the second. Every logical instinct screamed that rushing outside to open ground was safer than heading deeper into the enclosed mall. Brother, the exit's that way. The main gate will cave in within 3 minutes. How could you possibly know that? I just do. Lin Yan offered no further elaboration, only those 3 short words. A woman clutching a small child tripped and fell ahead of them, screaming. As she scrambled to her feet, 2 security guards sprinted toward the main entrance with rubber batons raised, shouting for the crowd to maintain order, their voices swallowed whole by the wall of terrified cries. Lin Yan shot a quick glance upward at the ceiling. Fresh spiderwebbing cracks spread across the plaster directly above the main entrance passage. He twisted his course and kicked open a fire door marked staff only set into the side wall. A narrow, dim service corridor lay beyond, lined with posters marking directions to freight elevators and custodian closets. Lin Tingxia was half dragged into the shadowed passage, finally yanking her wrist free from his grip. Lin Yan. It was the first time she had addressed him by his full given name, sharp with alarm. Did you know this disaster was going to happen all along? Lin Yan's footsteps faltered for a split second. A heavy crash echoed from around the next corridor bend, the sound of something large toppling to the floor. He did not turn to face her. Yes. Lin Tingxia's breath hitched sharply. That single admission chilled her far more than any lengthy warning ever could. Then why didn't you call the police? Why didn't the mall evacuate everyone? No one would have believed me. So you only trust your own judgment? Right. Now, my word is the only thing you can trust. Lin Tingxia parted her lips to argue, then fell silent. She suddenly realized Lin Yan was not merely panicking. He moved with frantic urgency, yet every step he took was calculated and precise. Sharp turns, quick sidesteps to dodge a tipped custodian cart, even knowing which doorways led to dead ends. The thought sent a cold shiver racing down her spine. The half-ajar door to the custodian supply closet came into view ahead. Lin Yan reached out and pulled it open. Its loose latch gave way without resistance. Mops, water buckets, stacked boxes of cleaning detergent and rows of spare emergency lamps filled the small room. Leaning against the far wall stood 2 metal maintenance toolboxes, a thick shell miner's headlamp hanging beside them, and a short-handled demolition pickaxe propped diagonally beneath it. Lin Tingxia stared in bafflement. Why do you need these tools? To stay alive. Lin Yin lifted the headlamp and flicked its power switch. It blazed bright without faltering. He grabbed the short pickaxe next, weighing it in his palm. It was lighter than the black rock mining pick he'd used in the tunnels of his past life, yet serviceable for the immediate crisis. He pried open a plastic storage crate beside the toolboxes, revealing unopened packs of water filtration pouches and 2 unclaimed bottles of mineral water set aside by staff. In his past life, all these supplies had been trampled and abandoned right outside this closet door. This time, no one else had thought to seek them out. Take this. He pressed the headlamp into Lin Tingxia's arms, then stuffed the filtration pouches and water bottles into a canvas custodian sack. Lin Tingxia hugged the headlamp to her chest, her mind still spinning in confusion. Brother, what kind of lamp even is this? Don't ask questions, strap it on first. Rapid footsteps suddenly echoed from the corridor outside the closet. A young security guard skidded to a halt in the doorway, sweat dripping down his forehead, rubber baton clutched in one hand. His eyes locked onto the canvas sack, then the pickaxe in Lin Yan's grip, and his expression darkened instantly. What are you two doing? No one's authorized to take staff emergency supplies. Lin Tingxiao instinctively pulled the headlamp tighter to her chest. Lin Yan did not waste breath on explanations, only stepped forward. One pace. Move aside. You dare steal supplies and act this arrogant? The security guard flew into a rage and reached out to grab the cloth bag. Everything outside has fallen into chaos right now. These supplies are reserved for the logistics team. Put it down at once. Lin Yan clamped his wrist in a grip of terrifying strength. The logistics crew can't save you. What did you say? The main entrance will collapse in 3 minutes. The guard's face stiffened. Then he grew even angrier. That's nonsense. Lin Yan stared at him, his tone cold as stone. If you head back to the main entrance now, you'll only catch sight of the first row of glass shattering. Wait any longer, and the main support beams will crash down along with it. If you want to live, stay far away. The guard stood, dumbfounded by his words. Lin Tingxia also fixed her gaze on Lin Yan, a chill creeping up her spine. She could tell he wasn't bluffing to scare them. He sounded like he was reciting a fact he'd lived through before. From deep down the corridor outside, a thunderous crash far louder than the last echoed out. It wasn't a small explosion. It sounded as if an entire stretch of space had caved. And all at once, the ground shuddered beneath their feet, dust sifting down through cracks in the ceiling. Right after that, a shrill, tearing scream came from the distance, tangled with the crisp crackle of glass, shattering nonstop, rippling all the way down the empty mall corridor. The main entrance had collapsed. All color drained from the security guard's face in an instant. His lips trembled, and he couldn't utter a single word. Lin Tingxiao froze in place too. If she hadn't followed Lin Yan just now, she would have been trapped in that crowd. Right there, where the rubble lay. Let's go. Lin Yan didn't give them time to process what had happened. He slung the cloth bag over his arm and bolted for the exit. This time, the guard made no move to block him. He even stepped aside subconsciously as them passed, clearing a wider path for them. The far end of the corridor led to the freight elevator zone. Collapsing structures and cries still drifted in from outside the mall, yet the interior felt sealed. Off behind an invisible barrier, the lights flickered on and off, dust coating every surface from the tremors. Lin Yan led Lin Tingxiao rushing down the stairs at a pace that barely left her time to catch her breath. Lin Tingxiao wore a mining lamp strapped to her back, her white knuckle gripped tight on the bag's shoulder strap. When they reached a stair landing, she could run no farther and leaned against the wall, gasping heavily. Brother, wait a second. Lin Yan turned back to face her. She lifted her head to look at him, her face pale, yet her eyes far clearer than they'd been moments before. You're not losing your mind, are you? Lin Yan did not answer immediately. A loud clang echoed from the floors below as a metal door was jarred open by the tremors. He glanced down at his watch. Time was slipping away second by second. Every tick felt like a blade pressed against their throats. I'll only say this once. Lin Yan held his breath, his voice dropping to a low murmur. The paths everyone else is rushing toward above ground lead to certain death. The real safe route lies in the underground loading dock. No matter what you see or hear later, stick close to me. If anyone calls out to you, do not turn around. If people beg for help, we cannot stop yet. Once we secure a stable position, we will go back to rescue others. Lin Tingxiao's throat tightened. His words were brutally cold, but she saw how his knuckles whitened around the handle of his short mining pick. It wasn't that he had no desire to help others. He simply could not afford to act recklessly. A flood of half-understood realizations washed over Lin Tingxia. even as countless questions lingered. She tugged the mining lamp strap tighter over her shoulder and nodded softly. All right, I'll follow you, no matter what. A heavy weight lifted from Lin Yan's chest. It wasn't relief that she believed him. It was the knowledge that Lin Tingxia, who had never made it past the third-floor dessert shop in his past life, was truly right beside him this time. Cold wind surged upward from the depths below the stairs. It was the air from the underground loading dock, the familiar scent that marked the start of the only viable escape route. Lin Yan stepped forward and kept descending. Mining lamp, short mining pick, water filter pouches, his little sister. He had secured the essential supplies and the person that mattered most in this first critical stretch. Yet it was not nearly enough. In his past life, the first wave of survivors hadn't lived merely because they ran fast. They'd survived because they'd ventured into the underground levels that everyone else dared not enter in the initial chaos. Beyond the loading dock lay abandoned mine shafts, the 37-second lull in the wind, and sink layers that devoured anyone who misstepped. That marked the first true line between life and death. At the bottom of the stairwell, a thick fire door had split open along its frame from the quakes. The crack gaped open, black as the mouth of a mine. Lin Yan tightened his hold on the short mining pick and pushed the door wide. Stay close behind me. The real path to survival begins underground. The instant the fire door swung open, a gust of damp, frigid wind crashed into their faces. No, this was the distinct stench of the underground loading dock. Rust, machine oil, dust, and the earthy rot rising up from the deeper tunnels. Lin Yan stepped inside, his boots crunching over scattered shards of glass and discarded packaging boxes. The wide ramp built for delivery trucks had split open along two jagged cracks. Overhead lights flickered weakly, casting the entire underground space in a sickly glow. Chaos still raged above ground. Down here, it was an entirely separate world. People sprinted outward clutching cardboard boxes, others huddled against the walls sobbing, and a few crouched beside the metal roll-up doors, retching. Farther off, one loading bay door hung ajar, pitch black beyond the gap. Wind whipped through the opening in steady bursts. Lin Tingxia's palms slicked with sweat beneath the mining lamp strapped to her back. Brother, we're going even deeper down. We have to. The mall above is already half collapsed. Wouldn't the underground be far more dangerous? It's risky, but it's the only place we stand a chance to live. Lin Yan never slowed his pace. 90% of the first wave of survivors in his past life had died trying to rush back above ground. Those who'd managed to hold on had forced themselves into the underground tunnels amid the initial pandemonium. Above ground, the established order crumbled. Beneath the earth, lives crumbled. Both paths required a gamble, yet failure above meant instant death. If you failed underground, there were still predictable patterns you could rely on to stay alive. A woman's sharp scream suddenly cut through the hum of the loading dock's ventilation system. It was followed by the deafening crash of metal shelving toppling. Over. Lin Yan's eyes narrowed, and he sprinted toward the sound. After rounding a row of half-wrecked delivery carts, he spotted a massive metal shelf tilted forward, pinning a person beneath it. Half their body was buried under scattered cartons, only a single kicking foot visible. Two other bystanders hovered nearby, too afraid to draw close. Chunks of concrete ceiling crumbled down right above the shelf. Step back. Lin Yan jammed his short mining pick into the ground, wrapped both hands around the shelf's metal frame, and heaved upward with all his strength. Before the two onlookers could react, a shrill scraping sound filled the air as the warped metal rack lifted half a meter off the ground under his raw power. Pull them free. One middle-aged man snapped out of his shock and lunged forward, grabbing the trapped person by the arms and dragging them out. The girl they pulled free wore a ponytail, thin and coated in gray dust, still clinging tightly to a bulging sports bag pressed to her chest. Once she rolled clear, she coughed violently for a long moment, then lifted her head to meet Lin Yan's gaze, her eyes wide with lingering terror. Thank you. Her voice was hoarse, her ragged breathing like a wheezing bellows. I thought that shelf would be the end of me today. Lin Yan swept his gaze over her quickly. 21 or 22 years old, bright eyes, quick tongue. Even gasping for air, her ears twitched instinctively toward the tunnels where the wind howled loudest. Zhou Xiaoman. In his past life, she'd been the first survivor in the underground levels to master the skill of reading wind patterns to judge danger. She'd also been the one who double-checked and corrected nearly all his escape routes later on. Right now, she did not know him at all. Zhou Xiaoman blinked at his unwavering stare and hugged her sports bag tighter. Out of reflex. Why are you staring at me? There's nothing valuable inside my bag. The valuable thing is your sharp ears. Lin Yin tossed the line over his shoulder and turned to leave without another word. Zhou Xiaoman stood frozen, confused. What on earth is that supposed to mean? Lin Tingxia also stared after her for a split second before hurrying to catch up with Lin Yin. At the far end of the ramp stood a dented metal roll-up door, warped from repeated impacts. The opening behind it led to the abandoned mine shaft entrance. The passage had originally been reserved for maintenance crews and in used freight. Elevator wiring, kept locked year-round. The seismic tremors had snapped the lock clean off, and a thin layer of milky white acid fog billowed out through the crack. 7 or 8 people had gathered nearby, none daring to step inside. One person shone a phone flashlight into the gap. The beam barely penetrated far enough to reveal a cracked concrete platform halfway in. Beyond that, everything vanished into shadow. We can't go in, there's toxic fog filling the tunnel. There's a warning sign posted here, labeled maintenance only, no entry. We should turn back and try the parking garage instead. Lin Yin's footsteps halted. The parking garage would be flooded with the first wave of rock debris in 5 minutes, just as it had been in his past life. Turning back meant walking straight into a death trap. Lin Tingxia's face paled further at the group's words. Brother. Her voice trembled with anxiety. Is this passage really our way out? Lin Yin did not answer right away, his gaze fixed on the ground beneath their feet. Fine dust vibrated faintly across the concrete. The second aftershock was fast approaching. A few steps deeper, gusts of wind rolled out of the mine shaft in uneven surges. To everyone else, the sound was merely unsettling, yet to Lin Yin, it read like a string of numbers he'd memorized 100 times over. 3 long blasts. 1 short burst. Another long gust. The 37-second wind lull was still 1 cycle away. It's passable. When do we go in? When the wind cuts out completely. A man standing nearby overheard and scoffed, calling him crazy. You're waiting for the wind to die down in this cursed tunnel? Lin Yin ignored the jeer. Zhou Xiaoman had wandered over without anyone noticing, standing a short distance behind them, one hand gripping her bag strap. All her casual, carefree energy had faded from her features. She stared into the swirling white fog inside the shaft and spoke quietly. The wind's pattern is wrong. Lin Yin glanced back at her. Zhou Xiaoman swallowed a mouthful of dust and frowned deeply. There's an empty cavern ahead, the fog's rising up from beneath it. In a little while, the wind will cut off abruptly for a moment. Lin Tingxia glanced back and forth between Zhou Xiaoman and Lin Yin, utterly baffled. The two of them spoke as if sharing a secret language no one else could understand. Lin Yin only said one thing to the girl. Stick with me, and you'll live. Zhou Xiaoman stared at him for 2 full seconds, half tempted to laugh, yet unable to muster a smile. That's an odd way to offer someone safety. If you want to survive, stay quiet and count the wind bursts. With that, Lin Yin walked forward to the roll-up door and brushed a hand against the metal frame. Damp, ice-cold, fine white crystalline residue crusted the inner edge of the frame, identical to how it had been in his past life. The acid fog was not the greatest danger in this tunnel. The real threat lay in the false safe platform hidden behind the mist. The first stretch of the shaft appeared solid enough to stand on, yet the ground beneath had hollowed out entirely. Step onto the third cracked slab, and the entire platform would collapse, swallowing anyone standing atop it into the void below. The first group of people who'd died here in his past life hadn't even managed to finish screaming before they vanished. Lin Yin bent down and picked up a small metal bolt from the dust, tossing it deep into the shaft. Clink, clink. The third impact never echoed back. It fell straight into empty darkness. The onlookers stumbled backward as one. The ground's hollowed down there. Hell no, I'm not stepping foot in there. Lin Tingxia's fingers tightened into fists. She finally understood why Lin Yin had refused to pause for even a second. Since the mall collapsed. In a place like this, a single misstep meant certain death. The wind continued to howl through the shaft. Lin Yin closed his eyes, tapping 2 slow beats against the handle of his mining pick. 1 tap, 2 taps, a quiet rhythm to steady his resolve. I'll go first once the wind lulls. He opened his eyes, his voice calm and firm. Step exactly where I step. Keep your strides short. No matter what noise you hear, do not lift your head to look up. Lin Tingxia's lips blanched, but she nodded in agreement. Zhou Xiaoman couldn't hold back her question. What about that wind lull you mentioned? It will last 37 seconds. How do you know it's exactly 37 seconds? I remember it. The statement sounded utterly bizarre, but no one had the mental space to question it amid the ongoing disaster. The next instant, the wind surging out of the mine shaft weakened sharply. It was as if the massive beast that had been huffing against the door had suddenly drawn its breath inward and fallen silent. Lin Yan's eyes sharpened with urgency. Move. He ducked through the roll-up door first, pressing tight against the cracked left wall to navigate the passage. White fog swirled across his cheeks, stinging his eyes until they burned, yet he never slowed. The tip of his boot landed precisely on the edge of the first fractured slab, his second step landing on a raised beam. And with his third stride, he vaulted clean over the treacherous false platform. Tingxia. Lin Tingxia clamped her jaw shut and rushed after him. The tip of her shoe barely brushed the third cracked slab, and a faint splitting crack echoed from beneath it. Her heart threatened to burst out of her chest, yet she forced herself not to glance down, throwing herself forward to follow Lin Yan's retreating back. Xiaoman. Zhou Xiaoman drew in a deep breath and sprinted into the fog after them. She had only stepped onto the second slab when a burly man from the crowd outside panicked and charged into the tunnel. If they can cross, so can I. Lin Yan didn't spare him a glance, his voice sharp and icy over his shoulder. Don't step on the third slab. The man ignored the warning. He planted his full weight down on the third cracked panel. The entire false platform caved in instantly. Chunks of concrete plummeted into the black void along with the man. His scream cut short halfway before the wind and fog swallowed the sound entirely. Lin Tingxia's legs buckled, and she nearly tumbled into the chasm. Lin Yan whipped around and grabbed her arm, hauling her roughly across the final stretch of fractured ground. All three crashed onto the solid rock ledge on the far side at nearly the same moment. A heartbeat later, the stretch of platform that had still appeared stable collapsed completely behind them. White fog billowed upward before slowly settling back down. Zhou Xiaoman collapsed onto the rock, gasping for air for a long while before she could push herself upright. Damn it, I was inches from falling into that hole too. She lifted her head to stare at Lin Yan, her gaze completely transformed. You truly knew every danger ahead of time. Lin Yan did not acknowledge her observation. His attention was fixed on a jagged fissure along the edge of the rock ledge. In his past life, after this platform collapsed, a strip of black bedrock would be exposed within the crack. Wedged into that black rock was a heavy short-handled mining pick. An old mining pick forged from black bedrock, its head infused with resonant mineral dust. It was incredibly durable and weighty, perfect for prying loose fractured rock layers and smashing mineral deposits in the early days of survival. Lin Yan walked over and knelt down, brushing loose gravel away from the fissure's edge. A black wooden handle peeked out from the rubble. A surge of emotion welled up in his chest. He jammed his current lightweight mining pick into the crack as a lever and pressed his shoulder down hard. Stones showered down as he pried the black bedrock pick free inch by inch. Its head was pitch black, edged with a faint silvery gray sheen. The moment his fingers wrapped around the handle, its heavy weight settled firmly into his palm. Zhou Xiaoman pushed herself into a sitting position. You knew this pick was here too? I know now. The words had barely left his mouth when a sudden heat seared his palm. It was not warmth radiating from the wooden handle. A strange thrumming surged up from deep within his bones, sliding along his spine like an invisible current, before a faint translucent page unfurled in front of his eyes. Lin Yan's breath caught in his throat. Faint gray-white patterns materialized in the surrounding darkness, spreading like mineral dust caught in a gentle wind to form a flat surface inscribed with text. Mining vein resonance record verified route. Mall underground loading dock abandoned shaft 4-ledge core rule. The 37-second wind lull allows safe crossing. Of the sink layer false platform verifier. Lin Yan cognition wait. 1. A fainter line of text lingered beneath the rest, as if it might fade away at any moment. New survival paths may be recorded here. Lin Tingxia saw nothing of the strange page. She only watched Lin Yan freeze mid-motion, his knuckles wide around the pick's handle. Brother? Lin Yan blinked once. The translucent page remained visible before him. This was no hallucination, no leftover delusion from his death in his past life. He had been reborn not only with the memories of his previous life, but also with the power to solidify those memories into tangible, recorded truths. Zhou Xiaoman had climbed to her feet and stepped closer, rubbing her aching arm. Why are you staring blankly into the dark? What is it you're seeing? Lin Yan slowly exhaled a long breath and lifted the black bedrock pick in his hand. I'm seeing the path to stay alive. The second the words left his lips, a low, distant echo rumbled from deeper within the mine shaft. It sounded as if something hidden far within the mineral veins had stirred, answering his presence with a quiet hum. Lin Yan lifted his gaze toward the endless blackness, stretching ahead, his expression hardening bit by bit. In his past life, he had only followed the paths carved out by others. In this life, he held the power to write those paths himself. He would not merely survive. He would map every escape route ahead of everyone else, claim vital mineral resources, and rewrite the fate that had doomed him and his sister before. The rock ledge on the opposite side of the abandoned shaft was narrow. The three of them huddled together, damp cold rock at their backs, with the lingering white fog still drifting before them. Tiny fragments of stone and dust showered down from the ceiling at intervals, and distant rumbling collapses served as a constant reminder that they were only temporarily safe, not out of danger entirely. Lin Yin knelt at the edge of the ledge and spread out the cloth cleaning bag he'd grabbed earlier. 2 bottles of mineral water, 3 water filter pouches, 1 mining lamp, and the black bedrock pick. That was all they possessed. They lacked enough supplies to hold out for even a single full day, let alone establish a secure foothold. Lin Tingxia set the mining lamp down at her feet and spoke softly. Should we split the supplies now? Not yet. Lin Yin twisted open 1 water bottle and held it out to her first. Lin Tingxia refused to take it, meeting his eyes steadily. You drink it. I can endure thirst longer. So can I. The siblings stood locked in a quiet standoff for a moment. Zhou Xiaoman crouched beside them, glancing back and forth between the two, then scratched the tip of her nose awkwardly. I feel like I'd be intruding if I cut in right now. She paused and added another thought. But if neither of you plans to take a sip, could I have a small mouthful? I inhaled a ton of dust earlier. The tense atmosphere softened a little at her words. Lin Tingxia relented and took the bottle, taking 1 tiny sip before passing it to Zhou Xiaoman. The girl chugged 2 large gulps, her eyes lighting up instantly. I feel human again. She wiped dust from her mouth and turned to Lin Yin. What do we do next? We need to locate a stable stockpile of supplies. I know a place like that, Zhou Xiaoman answered without hesitation. There's a temporary restocking station east of the loading dock, set up to deliver goods to the underground convenience storage and staff break rooms. Right before the shelf trapped me, I watched 2 delivery trucks drop off crates of supplies there. Lin Yin lifted his gaze to her. Are there people guarding it? Definitely. How many? At minimum 5 or 6, and they're armed with steel pipes. Lin Tingxia, who had only just relaxed slightly, tensed up again at the news. If we head over there, we'll be walking straight into a confrontation. A direct fight would get us hurt or killed. Zhou Xiaoman tilted her chin toward Lin Yin. But you know hidden routes no one else does, right? Lin Yin studied her for a moment. This girl thought faster than she had in his past life. She might not comprehend the mining vein resonance record, yet she had grasped one critical truth already. Lin Yan's ability to foresee every upcoming disaster was worth more than any stockpile of supplies, and a power that valuable could be leveraged to claim the resources they needed. We'll go scout the area first. The 3 followed a narrow service passage winding along the side of the rock ledge, deeper into the tunnels. The rear section of the abandoned shaft connected to the east side of the loading dock via a maintenance corridor barely 2 meters wide. A discarded conveyor belt ran along one wall, and a half-sealed ventilation trough lined the other. The ground was coated in thick dust and loose gravel, slippery if they moved too quickly. Zhou Xiaoman brought up the rear, her ears constantly tracking faint shifts in the wind around them. Don't lean too close to the left wall. She spoke up suddenly. Lin Tingxia instinctively stepped away from the conveyor belt. Zhou Xiaoman tapped the base of the rusted conveyor frame with her knuckle. The ground beneath it's hollow. The echo sounds wrong. Lin Yin said nothing, filing away her observation in his mind. This was the skill of reading wind and resonance, what she called listening to the wind. In past lives, most people thought Zhou Xiaoman was just blessed with dumb luck. It was only when nearly everyone around them perished that anyone realized what she could hear. Hollow cavities in mine tunnels, creature nests, fractured rock layers, and warped echo patterns. Someone with a gift like hers belonged firmly under his control. After rounding the end of the connecting passage, the space suddenly opened wide before them. It was a makeshift restocking area ringed halfway with wire mesh and metal shelving. Bottled mineral water, compressed biscuits, emergency medical kits, and 2 unopened plastic crates littered the ground. The central overhead lamp had half burned out, its flickering glow casting vicious, menacing shadows across the men guarding the spot. A bald man squatted atop one crate, rationing out supplies. 1 bottle of water for 2 packs of rations. No food, get lost. A tall, gaunt man brandished a steel rod and sneered, adding, anyone foolish enough to try stealing had better count how many lives they've got left. A dozen survivors crowded outside the restocking zone, all holding back their rage. Some stared at the water with desperate, bloodshot eyes, yet none dared move. Lin Tingxia shuddered at the sight and whispered, what do we do now? Zhou Xiaoman lowered her voice too. A direct fight would cost us too much. They've blocked off every viable approach perfectly. Lin Yin said nothing in reply. His gaze drifted upward first. An old ventilation pipe ran along the upper left of the supply zone, its joints split wide open, and half a loose layer of thermal insulation dangled from the ceiling edge. Below it stood a load-bearing support pillar that looked solid, yet its base bore cracks split open by the last two tremors. If another aftershock hit this spot, the ceiling on the left would collapse without fail, directly above the crate where the bald man sat. Lin Yin had calculated everything. Tingxiao, I'm here. How fast are you at keeping records? Lin Tingxiao blinked in confusion. Like bookkeeping. Exactly. I'm quick at it. Note down every supply anyone takes, and every debt owed from this moment on. Lin Tingxia had no clue why he'd brought this up out of nowhere, but she nodded obediently. She pulled a ballpoint pen from the pocket of her dessert shop apron, then dug a small pocket ledger out of her backpack. Zhou Xiaoman stared, stunned. You carry that everywhere. I was heading to a part-time job handover today. Lin Tingxia never imagined the notebook would be useful down here. Lin Yin fixed his gaze on the guards manning the supplies, and stepped forward into plain sight. Every onlooker's eyes locked onto him the second he moved. The gaunt man instantly raised his steel rod. Stop right there. The bald man sized Lin Yin up and down, then glanced at Lin Tingxia with her mining lamp slung over her back, a greedy glint flashing in his eyes. You brought backup? Lin Yin cut straight to the point, wasting no time on small talk. I don't want your paltry stock of water. The bald man let out a mocking snort. You came all this way just to sightsee? I'm here to offer you a chance to survive. A hush fell over the crowd outside the restocking zone. His words were outrageously bold, sounding like madness to everyone listening. The bald man laughed louder, sharp and derisive. Kid, do you have any idea who you're talking to? I know exactly who you are. Lin Yin lifted a hand, pointing toward the cracked ventilation pipe above his head to the left. That ceiling section will cave in within 10 minutes. The bald man's face darkened instantly. Are you cursing me? I'm warning you. Lin Yin spoke quietly, each syllable steady and unshakable. Before the collapse hits, that pillar to the left will emit 3 distinct sounds. The first hollow, the second dull and muffled. If you're still squatting there for the third, your skull will be crushed. Every bystander followed his pointing finger upward. Sure enough, the ventilation pipe swayed faintly. But it was only a faint tremor, nothing more. The bald man's hostile glare lingered, tangled with half-hearted suspicion. Why should I believe a word you say? You don't have to. Lin Yin stared coldly at him. Wait for the first rumble, then make up your mind. With that, he stood perfectly still, advancing no further and retreating not an inch, just waiting. Time stretched thin and taut. No one outside the supply area spoke, all transfixed by the unstable ceiling above. The bald man's complexion shifted between ashen and livid, opening his mouth to shout insults, yet holding back, uncertain. The gaunt guard slowly lowered his steel rod. 5 seconds. 8 seconds. 13 seconds. Thud. The first rumble echoed out. It wasn't deafeningly loud, but hollow and empty, as though someone had punched the metal duct from inside. The surrounding crowd flinched as one. The bald man's face drained of all color. He craned his neck upward. Lin Yin hadn't moved an inch. The second one will sound much closer. He barely finished speaking before another dull thud crashed through the air. This time the vibration was thick and heavy, sending fine gray dust showering down from the cracks overhead. The bald man lost his nerve completely, leaping off the crate and scrambling 2 paces to the right. The third impact struck almost immediately afterward. The entire left section of the ceiling caved in with a thunderous crash, dragging the ventilation pipe down with it into the supply zone. Plastic water bottles, cardboard crates, and stone dust exploded outward in every direction. The crate the bald man had occupied was crushed flat on the spot, its plastic casing splitting open to spill dozens of water bottles across the muddy ground. The crowd erupted into chaos. It really collapsed. He predicted it perfectly. How could he have known this would happen? Several survivors instinctively edged closer to Lin Yin. The guards who'd hoarded all the supplies were thrown into total disarray. The gaunt man tried rushing back to salvage goods, only to be blocked by a fallen pipe section that nearly shattered his leg. Seizing the moment before the guards could regroup, Lin Yin stepped forward. Now we negotiate. The bald man was coated head to toe in gray dust, his lips trembling uncontrollably. What do you want to bargain for? 3 crates of water, half a crate of compressed biscuits, 2 packs of emergency medical supplies. You might as well rob us outright. I am robbing you. Lin Yin slung his black rock mining pick loosely at his side, his tone flat, yet sending chills down every listener's spine. The only difference is, I'm robbing you of the life you haven't yet learned to value. The bald man swallowed hard, panic clawing at his throat. Every pair of eyes in the clearing was fixed on them. If he refused to comply now, another structural collapse would come, and his small band of guards would abandon him. Without hesitation, the second danger struck again. Fine, he ground out through gritted teeth. But you have to tell us which tunnel leads to safety next. Lin Yan shook his head. That piece of information costs extra. The bald man's eye twitched with frustration. Zhou Xiaoman's eyes lit up behind Lin Yan. She suddenly understood why he'd told Lin Tingxiao to bring the ledger earlier. From the very start, he'd never intended to act out of the goodness of his heart. Lin Tingxiao fought to steady her racing heartbeat and scribbled 2 quick lines in her notebook. 3 crates of water, half-crate compressed biscuits, 2 packs medical supplies. 1 safe route owed as additional payment. The survivors lingering outside watched Lin Yan exchange foreknowledge for tangible supplies. And their gazes shifted drastically, some filled with envy, others greedy covetousness, a few brimming with restless temptation. Lin Yan swept his gaze across the crowd and spoke once more. Anyone who wants to stay alive, don't clog the main passageways. If you want intel to survive, bring trade goods to me. His voice carried no volume, yet hammered a clear price tag onto every scrap of information. Once they hauled their new stock of supplies away from the collapsed restocking zone, Zhou Xiaoman could no longer hold back her grin. This isn't survival strategy, it's running a business. Lin Yan slung his mining pick over one shoulder. The chance to live is always a transaction. Lin Tingxia clutched the supply crates to her chest and stole a glance at him. Only now did she truly grasp that Lin Yan was fighting for far more than mere survival. He was fighting to control the truth, to set the value of safety and knowledge for everyone underground. The 3 of them had barely stepped clear of the supply zone when a neat line of uniform lights flickered to life at the far end of the connecting tunnel. It wasn't the scattered, unfocused glow of makeshift mining lamps carried by refugees. A perfectly straight string of illumination, spaced at equal intervals. Moments later, a squad of people clad in identical protective suits marched out of the darkness. Matching helmets, knee pads, gloves, and standard mining lamps marked every member of the group. The lead figure gripped a foldable survey rod, while 2 others behind him carried a stretcher. Their movements were swift and silent, nothing like the disorganized groups of random survivors scattered through the tunnels. Zhou Xiaoman's smile vanished instantly. Who are these people? Lin Yan's gaze turned heavy and grim. In his past lives, organized mining convoys never descended to the shallow mine layers until much later in the disaster. This squad had arrived far too early, their timing unnaturally off. The team made no immediate move to attack, merely halting half the tunnel's length away, silently sizing up the terrain, stockpiles, and surrounding survivors. The lead man's gaze drifted across the ruined supply zone, then to the black rock pick slung over Lin Yan's shoulder. Finally lingering on the crates of supplies the trio dragged behind them. His expression was blank, neutral, yet as though he'd already assigned a numerical value to every person and item in sight. Lin Yan narrowed his eyes slowly. The game being played beneath the earth had shifted from a mere scramble for survival among scattered refugees the moment this organized squad appeared. At the sight of the disciplined group, Lin Yan chose to retreat first. Not out of fear. It simply wasn't the right moment for a confrontation. The limited water and rations they carried would barely sustain the 3 of them. They lacked the resources to contest territory against a well-trained, coordinated squad. Right now, the most vital asset they could secure was a permanent, reliable water source. Bottled mineral water would run dry eventually. Without a steady supply of fresh water, even the most resourceful person wouldn't last a full day underground. The trio turned deeper into the mine through a side passage, slipping out of the squad's line of sight. Zhou Xiaoman tapped the tunnel walls every few steps as they walked, her trained ears mapping the layout of this unfamiliar mine system through sound. Don't take the right branch. The echoes there are too muffled. It's a dead end. I hear running water up ahead. Lin Tingxia carried the supply containers without unnecessary questions, memorizing every warning word carefully. Lin Yan walked at the front, pick in hand, moving at a steady pace slow enough for Zhou Xiaoman to keep up without strain. In his past lives, the most dependable water source on the first mine level lay within an old fire control valve chamber. After the cataclysm ruptured half the main water pipeline, clean drinking water vanished entirely, leaving only condensed runoff that could be filtered for emergency consumption. The liquid tasted foul, heavy with metallic grit, yet far better than dying of thirst. For that exact reason, the valve chamber quickly became a territory seized by ruthless survivors who enforced brutal rules. Whoever controlled the water dictated the terms everyone else had to follow to stay alive. After rounding a cracked blast-proof door, faint lamplight glowed ahead. They'd reached a half-collapsed valve chamber. Discarded metal barrels lay strewn across the entrance, a thin layer of cold, reflective water pooling over the ground, and rows of outdated filter tanks stacked against the walls. The thick central control valve dripped steadily, a slow tick-tock echoing through the dark like a clock counting down human lifespans. Yet what sent a chill down their spines wasn't the dripping valve. It was the 5 men loitering at the doorway, armed with steel rods, broken crowbars, and a cleaver gripped by the man furthest inside. Their leader, bare-chested with a black snake tattoo winding across his shoulder, had a brutish, coarse face and yellowed teeth. Leaning lazily against the chamber frame, watching passers-by, a young girl crouched at his feet, tears streaming down her cheeks, clutching 2 packs of biscuits in her hands. Stifling quiet sobs, the tattooed man pressed his boot down onto the biscuits, a cruel sneer twisting his features. 2 packs aren't nearly enough payment. Hand over more medical supplies, or trade something else of value for water. A scrawny subordinate beside him jeered loudly. Kid, cooperate with our leader, and we'll let you have a few bottles of water. 7 or 8 other survivors lingered outside the valve room, none daring to intervene. Several burned with righteous anger, yet only stared at the ground, jaws clenched tight. Lin Tingxia froze mid-step. Zhou Xiaoman muttered a sharp curse under her breath. Lin Yan's eyes turned ice cold. He'd seen men like this countless times in past lives. Long before the mine's monsters claimed countless victims, humans like these learned to exploit vital resources to prey on the vulnerable. Lin Tingxia's voice trembled with tension, gesturing toward the weeping girl. Hold back for now, Lin Yan told her, yet lowered his mining pick into a ready grip. He scanned the ground first. The puddle at the chamber entrance was shallow, with a narrow drainage trough running along the base of the left wall, leading down into the sewer system. An old pressure gauge jutted above the trough, its red needle stuck inside a cracked glass casing, clearly unstable. Higher up along the wall cracks, streaks of pale gray scrapes marked the stone, trails left by creatures that crept along the crevices for years. Blind lizards. These creatures had been a persistent nuisance in his past lives. Small, sightless, with tough bony spines along their backs. They nested in damp shadowed fissures. Normally lethargic, high-frequency vibrations and the scent of blood sent them swarming outward in hordes. A single lizard posed little threat, yet dozens swarming over a person could tear them apart alive. Lin Yan formed his plan completely. Tingxia, yes. Step back and guard our supply crates. Xiaoman, I'm here. Once I make my move, keep watch on the left wall and ceiling. Shout the second any creatures emerge. Don't engage them yourself. Zhou Xiaoman shot him a quick glance, instantly realizing the creatures he referenced were no empty threat. She licked her parched lips and nodded. Understood. Only then did Lin Yan stride forward toward the valve chamber. The 5 men guarding the spot snapped their heads up the moment he approached. The tattooed leader's gaze locked onto the mining pick first, then slid to Lin Tingxia, standing behind Lin Yan, a greedy, malicious glint sharpening his stare. New arrivals? Here to trade for water. Lin Yan halted, his tone calm, betraying no hint of hostility. What I offer for trade is information. I don't need any useless intel, the tattooed man scoffed. You need a way to stay alive. The air around the valve chamber tautened the second those words left Lin Yan's mouth. The sneer faded completely from the tattooed man's face. Say that again. Lin Yan tilted his chin toward the faulty pressure valve behind the group. That gauge can't hold for another 30 seconds. If you keep draining water like this, the cracks in the left wall will split wide open. Whatever lies hidden inside will flood out, and none of your group will survive the attack. The scrawny subordinate shouted insults instantly. Where'd this lunatic come from, trying to scare us? Lin Yan ignored him, holding his focus fixed solely on the tattooed leader. Release that young girl unharmed now. Surrender control of this water source to us. In exchange, I'll explain how to minimize your group's casualties. The tattooed man barked a bitter laugh and spat on the muddy ground, treating his words as absurd nonsense. I'm not giving up anything today, and I've set my sights on the girl behind you too. The words barely left his mouth before Lin Yan struck. He didn't charge forward head-on. Instead, he kicked an empty metal barrel hard to his right. The barrel crashed into the standing puddle with an ear-splitting roar, drawing every man's gaze sideways in reflex, including the tattooed leader. That split second of distraction was all Lin Yan needed to dart left. He didn't swing the pick at the leader's skull. Instead, He slammed its heavy head against the aging valve wheel already on the verge of breaking. Crack. A second brutal strike. Crunch. The valve will split clean in two. High-pressure cold water exploded through the rupture, blasting straight into the legs of the tattooed man and the scrawny subordinate. Caught off guard, their feet slipped on the wet ground, sending both crashing backward. The pooling water spread rapidly, flooding the drainage trough and seeping into every wall crevice. Damn it! Kill him! The three remaining guards lunged to attack. Lin Yin didn't retreat. He swung the pick once more, smashing the edge of the widest wall crack. Rushing water, violent vibration, and the sharp scent of damp stone combined to trigger the hidden creatures. A dense, rustling scuttle echoed from within the wall fissures. Zhou Xiaoman paled, raising her voice in alarm. Creatures pouring out the left wall. The next instant, more than a dozen pale gray blind lizards swarmed forth from the cracks. Driven mad by the noise and moisture, they attacked anything warm-blooded within reach. The first guard wielding a crowbar raised his arm to strike, only for two lizards to latch onto his forearm. He screamed in searing agony. Chaos erupted at the valve chamber entrance. The tattooed leader struggled to regain his footing on the slippery, waterlogged ground. Sliding back down the moment he stood upright, Lin Yin stepped into the shallow pool, swinging the pick's wooden handle sideways to slam hard against the man's throat. The tattooed leader's eyes bulged outward. Before he could recover his breath, Lin Yin drove a knee into his midsection. As the man doubled over in agony, he hooked the pick's metal head over the leader's shoulder and hurled him bodily against the half-open metal chamber door. A deafening bang echoed out. The leader's skull slammed against the doorframe, fresh blood streaming down his face instantly. The scrawny subordinate charged forward, steel pipe raised to strike. Lin Tingxia's palms sweated nervously as she watched, yet she forced herself to shout a warning. To your left. Without turning his head, Lin Yin jammed the pick's wooden handle backward, driving it hard into the man's ribs. The subordinate gasped, wind knocked clean from his lungs, dropping the pipe into the mud. A blind lizard scrambled up his trouser leg a moment later, and he shrieked, flailing wildly in a useless panic that only drew more lizards to him. Zhou Xiaoman had retreated to a safe distance, her face ashen, yet her eyes locked unblinking on the unfolding fight. For the first time, she truly understood Lin Yan's strength didn't stem from reckless courage alone. From the moment he stepped forward to negotiate, he'd calculated every variable, where each guard stood, when the valve would fail, when the lizards would swarm, who would panic first, who would fall fastest. This was no random brawl. It was a precise, pre-planned takedown. The two remaining guards saw the tide, turned hopelessly, and spun to run. Lin Yin kicked an empty water bucket into their path. It clattered across the wet ground, tangling their legs together and sending them sprawling. The other survivors lingering outside the chamber, who'd endured the guards' tyranny silently until now, surged forward to tackle the two fleeing men, pinning them firmly to the mud. The battle was over in an instant. The men who'd once ruled the water source with violence lay defeated at the very entrance they'd guarded. The tattooed leader dragged himself across the mud, blood foaming at his mouth. Lin Yin walked over and pressed the sole of his boot onto the foot that had crushed the girl's biscuits moments earlier. What were you saying just now? Agony contorted the leader's face. He tried to snarl insults, yet the blow to his throat left him capable of only hoarse, raspy noises. Lin Yin stared down at him, his voice low and cold. You wanted to seize our water supplies. He twisted his boot hard against the man's foot. Then you'll forfeit your life first. The tattooed leader let out a shrill scream, curling into a ball on the ground in agony. Heavy silence fell over the crowd outside the valve chamber. No one dared underestimate the trio any longer. Lin Yin pointed toward the secondary valve, still dripping steadily. Fill your containers here. Take turns. No pushing or fighting. Anyone who attempts to hoard or steal water will face harsh consequences from me. As soon as the words left his lips, the waiting survivors rushed forward with buckets and vessels, yet instinctively cleared a wide, stable patch of ground for Lin Yin, Zhou Xiaoman, and Lin Tingxia. Lin Tingxia walked over clutching their supply crates, her face still pale, yet her hands steady. Zhou Xiaoman stepped close, lowering her voice. If your calculations had been off by even one small margin, the three of us would have ended up as lizard bait. My calculations have never failed today, Lin Yin replied, dragging 2 full buckets of filtered runoff to rest beside his feet. Zhou Xiaoman studied him, a faint smile tugging at her lips despite the grim surroundings. Cold, unyielding, borderline ruthless, yet utterly reassuring to stand beside. Just then, orderly footsteps echoed from the tunnel outside, growing louder. Not the chaotic stampede of desperate refugees. Disciplined, synchronized steps marching steadily toward the chamber. The crowd blocking the valve chamber entrance split apart to make way, and harsh bright, mining lamp beams flooded into the room. The lead figure was tall, protective zipped fully up to his chin, coiled rescue rope gripped in one hand. Followed by 4 or 5 squad members, some bearing stretchers, others supporting wounded comrades. Their coordinated, efficient movements bore no resemblance to disorganized fugitives. The man swept his gaze across the scene. First he saw blind lizards writhing amid puddles of spilled water. Then the tattooed man collapsed on the ground, and lastly his eyes settled on Lin Yan. He paused for half a second. Who was in charge here just now? No one dared answer. Lin Yan merely lifted his eyes. I was. The man stared at him, offering neither praise nor rebuke, his gaze lingering briefly on the black rock pickaxe propped nearby. My name is He Donglin. 2 of my men are trapped in the side tunnels deeper in this zone. You clearly have a knack for mapping underground paths. Dare you come with me to get them out? I will. Lin Yan's reply was flat and unyielding. The coppery tang of blood mixed with raw mineral stench still hung thick at the valve room entrance, lending sharp weight to that single word. He Donglin did not respond at once. He glanced down at the tattooed man on the floor, then the handful of blind lizards still scuttling in the corner, before refocusing his full attention on Lin Yan's face. There was no hostility in his stare, yet not an ounce of trust either. It was the look of someone examining a knife freshly dug out of mud, gauging whether it might cut down their own people first. Your name? Lin Yan. Did you kill all these men? Not all of them are dead. You fight with brutal, unrefined tactics. Anyone who's lived long down here stops caring about civility. He Donglin's lips did not twitch, as if he had no intention of commenting further. A young team member behind him could not contain his anger, pointing at the local gangsters sprawled across the ground ready to speak up. Captain, these men were holding water rations hostage for lives minutes ago. We should bind them up at once. Deal with them later. He Donglin cut him off with one sharp line, then steered straight back to the urgent matter. The west side branch tunnel suffered a cave-in. 2 of my men are trapped inside. Standard clearing procedures would take a minimum of 20 minutes, and we cannot afford to wait that long. He hesitated a beat. I've been told you can navigate these tunnels flawlessly. Lin Yan met his eyes. It's not hearsay. I truly know how to read these paths. The young team member beside them frowned instantly, clearly thinking his tone far too arrogant. He Donglin did not rush to contradict him. Instead, he gestured for his subordinates to unroll a crumpled, dust-streaked crude zone map. The paper was stained with sweat and dried blood, marked with rough lines marking underground passageways, and a bold red cross marked the collapsed West Branch tunnel. They're trapped right here. He tapped the spot with his finger. The first half of the entry passable, but there's a secondary cave and deeper inside, and the right spur tunnel is leaking toxic hot gas. We attempted a rescue run moments ago. 1 man barely made it back, 2 others sustained injuries. Why did you turn back? First, the overhead support beams are loose and unstable. Second, distorted echo patterns make it impossible to tell if hollow voids lie ahead. Third, one of the trapped men is wounded. Every minute we waste worsens his condition. Lin Yan bowed his head to study the map. He had walked this exact branch tunnel once before, in his past life. More than once. Its deadliness stemmed from 3 overlapping hazards. 1. The third support pillar inside the entrance would crack horizontally from seismic shock. Any heavy jostle would send it crashing down. 2. The hot wind leaking from the right spur tunnel carried fine mineral dust. Prolonged inhalation caused sudden lightheadedness. 3. The only stable route looped through an abandoned service line to the left. It looked longer on paper, yet was far safer to traverse. He Donglin's team had retreated not out of cowardice. They simply lacked knowledge of the hidden safe path. I'll lead the rescue. Lin Yan lifted his head again. What makes you think we can trust you a second time? The question came from a tall crew member standing to He Donglin's left. His skin was dark, a makeshift pressure bandage wrapped tight around one arm. He was plainly the man who had barely escaped the West Tunnel earlier. You outmaneuvered those thugs at the water station, but hostage mediation and mine rescue are nothing alike. Naturally, they are different. Lin Yan locked eyes with him. Your team is far more skilled at subduing hostile raiders. But when it comes to misreading tunnel routes, your men will perish much faster than I would. The tall man's face darkened completely. Zhou Xiaoman bit back a laugh and ducked her head at once. Lin Tingxia squeezed her notebook tight at her side. He Donglin kept his gaze fixed on Lin Yan, ignoring the charged tension between the 2 men entirely. Show me your route. Lin Yan stretched a finger toward the map. 20 meters past the entrance, the overhead crossbeam will split open. Do not carry stretchers through head-on. hug the left wall, and move through single file. He traced a little farther forward. Steer clear of the right spur tunnel entirely. That hot dust wind saps strength from your legs. If you breathe it in, your rescue will turn into another fatality. Finally, his finger landed on a forgotten disused service line barely visible on the parchment. Loop through this stretch. It appears to add distance, yet it cuts straight behind the cave-in zone. None of your earlier scouts would have tried this way. A flicker of surprise crossed Hedonglin's features at last. How do you know this? The entrance to the abandoned line is half covered by a loose metal hatch, making it look permanently sealed off. That stretch also creates an empty, hollow echo that tricks people into thinking a fatal fault lies beneath. In truth, solid old maintenance girders run directly underneath. The tall crew member gaped silently. Every detail Lin Yan described matched exactly what they had witnessed. They had hesitated precisely at that metal hatch before turning back. Have you traveled this tunnel before? No. Then how can you know all these dangers? Lin Yan raised his gaze. Do you want an explanation? Or do you want your trapmen saved? Silence fell over the valve room, broken only by dripping water and the ragged breathing of the wounded. Lin Tingxia suddenly noticed a striking similarity between He Donglin and Lin Yan. Neither wasted idle words. Both prioritized results above all else. He Donglin tugged his protective glove snug over his hands. I'm coming with you. Captain, I said I will accompany him. His firm tone silenced all objections. He singled out 3 men with a sharp nod. You, Lao Ma, Ajia, bring rope and lightweight stretchers. The rest stay behind to guard the injured survivors. Lin Yan turned toward Zhou Xiaoman. You're coming too. Zhou Xiaoman blinked in shock. Me as well. You can listen for structural vibrations. Only 2 short words, yet Zhou Xiaoman gritted her teeth and nodded. All right. Lin Tingxia instinctively stepped forward. What about me? You remain here. Lin Yan spoke swiftly. Monitor supplies, watch over the wounded, guard the water reserves. Note anyone who stirs up trouble, anyone caught stealing. Don't let our supplies be ransacked again before we return. Lin Tingxia had hoped to join the rescue, but his final instruction rooted her to the spot. She understood he was not abandoning her. He was entrusting her with their most vital, stable foothold. Understood. She nodded firmly. I'll log every detail for you when you get back. Lin Yan wasted no more time. He slung the black rock pickaxe over one shoulder and headed straight for the West Branch tunnel. This passageway was far darker than the water valve station. The entire stretch was lined with shock-cracked support frames and half-collapsed freight rails. The air grew hotter the deeper they ventured, fine mineral dust clinging to the tunnel walls. Every footstep sent clouds of gray grit swirling upward. As soon as they reached the tunnel mouth, Lin Yan held up a hand. Stop. The men behind him froze in unison. Look overhead. He Donglin followed his pointing finger and spotted a hairline horizontal crack splitting the third overhead crossbeam, almost invisible to untrained eyes. Lao Ma's face paled instantly. We charged straight through the center on our first attempt. That's how you nearly got crushed. Lin Yan edged along the left wall, moving with featherlight steps, careful not to let the pickaxe handle brush against any support beams. Once he reached safe ground, he waved the others forward. One at a time. He Donglin went second. As he passed beneath the cracked beam, he glanced upward, his expression growing heavier. Another 10 meters inward, hot gusts poured steadily from the right spur tunnel. The wind carried a fine, powdery mineral scent, harmless at first whiff, yet leaving a burning dry ache deep in the chest once inhaled. Ajou instinctively lifted a hand to cover his nose and mouth. Lin Yan pressed his arm down. Do not pause. Stopping will force you to draw a massive lungful of toxic dust. He tore a damp filter cloth from his pack, passing one first to He Donglin, then distributing them to the rest of the group. Zhou Xiaoman brought up the rear and whispered suddenly. There's a hollow rumble coming from the left ahead. Lin Yan hummed in acknowledgement. They had reached the hatch. The loose metal panel slanted across the disused service line entrance, half buried under collapsed rubble, just as Lin Yan remembered from his past life. It appeared completely blocked, yet a narrow gap wide enough for a single person to crawl through lingered underneath. He Donglin knelt to inspect it. You even knew about this hidden opening. We can discuss how later, once we've rescued your men. With that, Lin Yan slid the head of his black rock pickaxe into the gap and pried gently. The hatch lifted just enough to create a crawl space. I'll go first. He slipped sideways into the passage, his boots landing solidly atop the forgotten maintenance girders concealed beneath layers of dust. 5 meters farther ahead, faint voices echoed from behind the mass of collapsed rock. Is anyone out there? The voice was raw and hoarse, as if the trapped man had shouted for hours on end. Save your breath. Lin Yin whispered back. We're here to lead you out. The rest of the team crawled through the hatch one after another. 2 men were trapped behind a cave-in. One suffered a severe leg wound, the other a shoulder injury. Both remained conscious, huddled against the dust-covered tunnel wall beside a bent, crushed stretcher. Their eyes reddened the moment they spotted He Donglin. Captain. He Donglin skipped formalities, checking their pulses quickly before scanning the surrounding unstable supports. One can walk unassisted, the other must be carried. We won't take the original entry path back, Lin Yin said, already examining the overhead structure. Retracing their steps to the main entrance would trigger a secondary seismic collapse. The safest escape route followed the maintenance girders half a stretch farther forward, cutting back to the main tunnel through a low, narrow crevice. The passage was cramped and difficult to maneuver a patient through, yet free of loose overhead beams and toxic hot dust winds. Dismantle the stretcher. String the rope horizontally to make a soft drag sling. Lao Ma questioned him reflexively. Will this method hold? If you'd rather haul the broken stretcher back through the unstable tunnel, feel free. We'll see which beam collapses on you first. Lao Ma fell silent. The group moved quickly. He Donglin tied secure, reinforced knots in the rope, then ordered a Zhe to carry the walking wounded man on his back. Lin Yin led the way at the front, calling out warnings at every tight bend, signaling which ground and overhead structures could safely be touched, and which were deadly unstable. Step over the girder with your left foot. Duck your head low. Avoid patches thick with loose mineral dust. Do not lean against this wall. The rock behind it is hollow. In the cramped service line, barely wide enough to turn around, they dragged the injured survivors inch by inch to safety. The instant all of them crawled back into the main tunnel, a low, rumbling tremor echoed from deep inside the entrance passage. A split second later, the exact stretch of overhead beam they would have crossed if they'd backtracked the original route crashed down in a thunderous cave-in. A thick wave of gray dust billowed over their faces. Azure froze rigid where he stood. Lao Ma stared back at the collapsed tunnel for a long moment, swallowing hard without uttering a single word. If Lin Yin had not rerouted them, at least one of the trapped men would have perished. He Donglin stood amid the swirling dust, slowly pulling the damp filter cloth away from his mouth. The way he looked at Lin Yin bore no resemblance to the suspicious scrutiny from back at the water station. No longer an interrogation, now genuine recognition. 0 casualties. He murmured the line quietly, as if confirming the miracle to himself. Lin Yin planted the black rock pickaxe against the ground, his chest heaving with heavy breaths. He had memorized this tunnel from a past life stained with corpses. This time, no lives had been lost. When the group returned to the valve room, the surrounding survivors stared at them with completely transformed expressions. Earlier they had only felt fear, but now they looked upon Lin Yin as someone who truly held the path to survival, a lifeline made flesh. Lin Tingxia hurried forward, clutching her notebook. She scanned the unharmed rescuers first, then the wounded men, and finally fixed her gaze on Lin Yin. Everyone made it back safely. Her voice was soft. Lin Yin nodded. Everyone's here. He Donglin stood off to one side, silent for several beats, before speaking abruptly. Shaft 7 will open tonight. Zhou Xiaoman's eyes flew wide open. Is that true? New intelligence just arrived. He Donglin's voice stayed steady as he faced Lin Yin. I had no intention of racing for access earlier, but I've changed my mind. If you truly understand these underground routes, you must know whoever enters the shaft first gains priority access to the primary mining zone's entrance. Complete silence fell across the valve room. Lin Yin's grip around the pickaxe handle tightened slowly. In his past life, Shaft 7 had opened far later in the timeline. Another critical milestone had been pushed forward. The world's disasters and opportunities were accelerating, some hidden force pushing every pivotal event to unfold sooner. For Lin Yin, this news sounded less like a notification and more like a starting gunshot. The gates to the primary mining zone had finally been laid directly before him. Shaft 7 opens tonight. The air in the valve room grew, so still you could almost hear the dripping water halt for a heartbeat after He Donglin's words. Lin Tingxiao was the first to react. What is Shaft 7? Before He Donglin could reply, Zhou Xiaoman gasped sharply. It's the richest black ore vein in the shallow underground strata. She turned to Lin Tingxiao, eyes blazing with urgency. Whoever secures entry first will gain an insurmountable advantage over everyone else for the next 2 to 3 days. Black ore can be traded for tools and medical supplies, and with luck, you can chip off fragments of resonance crystal. Water, navigable tunnels, durable mining ore, the 3 most scarce resources underground, are all concentrated within that shaft. Lin Tingxia grasped the gravity instantly. This was no mere mine shaft. It marked the dividing line between life and death for every survivor. Lin Yan gripped his blackrock pickaxe and said nothing. In his past life, Shaft 7 had served as the first organized entry point to the shallow mining zones, and the first brutal screening mechanism deployed by Gu Qinzhou's faction. It was here that lines were drawn. Who could enter, who would emerge alive, who would claim ore, and who would be left to starve outside the shaft walls. Now its opening had been moved forward, signaling that the entire deadly game unfolding beneath the earth was speeding toward its climax. Where is it located? He Donglin had anticipated the question and merely tilted his head toward Lao Ma. Lao Ma unrolled another crudely sketched route map onto the ground, pointing to a dense cluster of abandoned shaft markers in the northwest corner. Head north from the valve room, pass through the derelict elevator shaft, then cross 2 stretches of old conveyor belt tunnels. Normal walking pace would take 20 minutes. Normal speed won't get us there in time. Lin Yan cut in sharply. He Donglin shot him a glance. You also believe the opening will come earlier than scheduled? It is guaranteed to open ahead of time. Lin Yan knelt down, tapping his finger against the map. The valve station, old mine corridors, and side tunnels have all activated prematurely. Anyone who follows the original timeline to reach Shaft 7 will pay with their lives as the first casualties. Lao Ma's expression darkened. Then we cannot recklessly rush to seize it. So many survivors are watching. Even a minute's delay or head start could send someone plummeting into a fatal sinkhole. That is precisely why we must race to arrive first. Lin Yan stood upright, his gaze sweeping over every survivor inside and outside the valve room. The 2 rescued wounded men had been settled, and all the survivors clustered near the water station listened intently, none daring to interrupt, yet all breathing heavier with mounting tension. They all understood the stakes. The moment Shaft 7 unlocked, whoever claimed the entrance first would grasp the key to survival. You intend to go? He Donglin asked. It is not a mere desire. Lin Yan met his eyes firmly. It is a necessity. A sudden surge of movement erupted outside the valve room, a steady stream of footsteps pushing inward. Several men carried tall lighting rigs, followed by a crew all wearing matching protective suits, forcing the scattered crowd of survivors to split apart to either side. At the front stood a man in his early 30s, hair neatly combed, his protective zipped fully closed up to his chin, yet wearing a polished, civilized smile that felt jarringly out of place underground. It seems word has reached all of you about the upcoming shaft opening. His voice was quiet, yet carried an overbearing air as if he planned to speak for everyone present. Shaft 7 will activate very soon. We hate to see survivors rushing blindly to their deaths, so our team has prepared an official safe route map for distribution. As he spoke, he lifted his hands to unroll a laminated blueprint, its glossy surface catching the dim tunnel light. A murmur rippled through the crowd outside the valve room at once. A safe navigation map? Is this genuine? Would they really hand these out for free? The man looked pleased by their unrest, his smile never fading. We are a temporary survey detachment under Qinzhou Resources. Our top priority right now is maximizing survival rates among underground refugees. The route maps carry no charge, available for anyone to take. Simply stick to the marked safety corridors, and you will avoid the first wave of sinkhole collapses. Qinzhou Resources. Those 2 words made the cold glint in Lin Yan's eyes deepen sharply. This was the exact faction he remembered from his past life. They hid behind the pretense of offering salvation, locking away the most valuable underground paths first, then sending wave after wave of unorganized scavengers forward to test every lethal hazard for them. He fixed his eyes on the laminated map, and a single glance filled his chest with dread. The turning point on the right side was deliberately misaligned. The blueprint shifted the path of the deadliest toxic air vent half a grid over, labeling it a safe passage. Any group following this map would lose at least 30% of their number to sinkhole voids directly past the shaft entrance. Not everyone would die, but enough casualties would fall to reveal the true safe route hidden from view. Zhou Xiaoman leaned in to peek at the paper and muttered angrily under her breath. These marked paths look suspicious from the start. Stay quiet, Lin Yan warned in a low whisper. Watch and listen first. He Donglin had clearly spotted the flaw as well, his brows drawn tight. Yet he made no move to expose the lie immediately. The moment the map was unfurled, the panicked crowd had relaxed, desperate for a clear set of instructions to cling to. Some survivors pushed forward for a better view. Others traced the fake routes with their fingers in the air. When consumed by terror, people latch onto any answer that promises safety without question. The survey team representative continued his speech. 3 screening hazard zones line the entrance to Shaft 7. Remain calm when you arrive. Our team will prioritize groups carrying wounded, followed by survivors transporting vital supply rations. If everyone adheres to our commands, no one will perish in vain. Lin Yan nearly let out a bitter laugh at that last line. No one will perish in vain. It meant exactly the opposite. People would still die, their lives sacrificed to clear a safe path for Qinzhou resources. Lin Tingxia stood beside him, her face growing grimmer by the second. She too caught the hidden malice beneath his polished words. Brother, she whispered tightly, are they using ordinary survivors as human test subjects to clear the dangerous tunnels? Yes. Then why don't you expose their fraud right now? Lin Yan's gaze never left the laminated fake map. If I call their bluff this instant, no one will fully believe our warnings. They hold official blueprints, powerful lighting equipment, uniformed personnel. We have nothing but our words to argue with. But if we wait any longer, dozens will walk straight into death following this map. Lin Tingxia's voice trembled with distress. It was the first time she had openly challenged his judgment all night, not doubting his foresight, but unable to bear watching innocent people march knowingly toward slaughter. Lin Yan shot her a quick glance, a faint twinge tugging at his chest. He understood her agony perfectly. Yet beneath the Earth's surface, mere verbal warnings held no power. To pull a crowd lulled into false security away from a lethal trap, the fake solution had to crumble completely before their eyes. Otherwise, another faction with false promises would win their blind trust the next time disaster struck. I'm not refusing to expose their deception. He lowered his voice to a murmur. I'm waiting for it to detonate at the exact moment it's meant to blow. Lin Tingxia pressed her lips tight and said nothing more. She hated that answer. Yet she also knew that whenever Lin Yan turned cold, his calculations ran deepest. Zhou Xiaoman suddenly dropped to her knees and pressed her ear against the cold, damp ground. 2 seconds passed, and she shot upright. Something's off. What's wrong? The air pressure at the wellhead. Her face paled, words spilling out faster. The rhythms shortened. It used to alternate long and short gusts, but now they've merged into 2 unbroken surges, like someone pried open the gate deep underground ahead of schedule. He Donglin twisted to face her at once. Can you be certain? 80% sure. Make that 90. Zhou Xiaoman swallowed hard. And it's speeding up fast. Lin Yan wasted no time, turning straight to He Donglin. Don't wait for them to organize. We leave now. He Donglin only hesitated a single second. Ma Zhe, a Zhe, gather the men. Grab only enough water and first aid kits for the journey. Travel light. The representative from Qinzhou Resources had clearly noticed their commotion, his smile fading thin. And where do you all think you're going? Lin Yan didn't spare him a glance, slinging his black rock pickaxe over one shoulder and heading for the exit. To stay alive. The entrance hasn't fully stabilized. Rushing out now will only disrupt everyone's plans. That's your concern. Lin Yan never slowed his stride. My concern is not letting your blueprint get us all killed. His voice was soft, yet it landed like a stone hitting still water. Everyone lingering outside the valve room heard him. Several people who'd planned to follow the safety schematic froze, eyes darting between the laminated chart and Lin Yan's retreating figure. Those he'd pulled from the flooded pit earlier instinctively edged closer to his group. The Qinzhou Resources rep opened his mouth to argue, but Zhou Xiaoman spun around first, her crisp voice cutting through the tension. If you care so much about everyone's safety, why aren't you the first one down the mine? A murmur rippled through the crowd. The man's jaw stiffened, his polite smile crumbling completely. Conditions underground are treacherous. You freelance diggers lack the means to handle them. Enough. He Donglin didn't look back, his tone heavy enough to weigh on every heart. Either follow us, or get out of our way. Even the onlookers who'd stayed neutral shifted their feet. Not everyone dared to trail Lin Yan outright. But no one trusted the schematic unconditionally anymore. The crowd split into 2 factions, chaos erupting instantly. Qinzhou Resources men moved to block their path, yet they dared not use brute force amid the unrest. They could only watch helplessly as Lin Yan's group cut past the valve room and sprinted toward the abandoned north elevator shaft. Debris and collapsed iron scaffolding littered the path. The stark white glow of miners' lamps flickered wildly through the narrow tunnel, washing every face in a sickly pale light. Some followed close behind, others lagged, and a handful still wavered over who to trust. Lin Yan never glanced back. He only listened to the wind. It had shifted. The farther north they went, the stronger the backdraft grew, as if some massive force deep within the well was twisting open a seal. A faint, cold metallic tang hung in the air, the telltale scent of exposed active black or veins. In his past life, This odor hadn't appeared until 10 minutes before the well opened. Now it was 15 minutes early at minimum. This was no minor miscalculation. Someone had forced the entire timeline forward. As they crossed the first abandoned elevator shaft, a low, deafening crash boomed overhead. Zhou Xiaoman skidded to a halt. It's open. The first air dampers come loose. Lin Yan's heart sank. It was unfolding even faster than he predicted. He glanced back at the line of gasping followers, lowering his voice to a sharp, unyielding edge. From this moment on, anyone who sticks to the original schedule will die. And they'll die exactly the way that chart predicted. Stay close to me. Shaft 7 only belongs to those who fight to survive. The mouth of abandoned Shaft 7 sat beneath a collapsed or transport platform. When Lin Yan's team burst onto the scene, the area was swarming with lights. Miners' lamps, handheld torches, temporary floodlights mounted on poles blanched half the wellhead an ashen white. Crowds pressed shoulder to shoulder around the pit. Freelance diggers, rescue crews, Qinzhou Resources staff, all fixated on the black metal cover slowly rising at the well center. The shaft itself hadn't fully opened, but the wind had broken free first. Frigid gusts surged upward nonstop, carrying the sharp stench of disturbed raw ore, mixed with a faint scraping of metal, as if a dull blade dragged against stone miles below. This was the signal that the black ore veins were about to surface. Whoever descended first would reach the primary ore deposit ahead of everyone else. But one misstep would send them plummeting to their doom before anyone could react. Lin Yan had barely steadied his feet when Qinzhou Resources made their move. The same survey representative stepped forward, all pretense of friendliness stripped away, leaving only icy civility worn thin. Standing atop a makeshift metal scaffold, he held up the laminated safety chart like an ultimatum for the crowd. The entrance activated earlier than projected. Everyone reorder yourselves per the route diagram. No reckless charges. A team of advanced scouts has already been selected. The rest of you, step back. As his words landed, 3 people in makeshift protective suits were shoved to the front. None of them worked for Qinzhou Resources. They were freelance diggers. 2 men and 1 woman, faces ashen. Miner lamps and rope forced into their trembling hands, raw terror plain in their eyes. The crowd erupted in outrage at once. Why send them down first? We were told this safety chart was for everyone. The representative didn't bother turning to acknowledge the shouts. Someone has to test the shifting air pressure ahead. If you value your lives, don't stir up trouble now. Stir up trouble. Lin Yan nearly laughed aloud. Plain and simple. They intended to use strangers to absorb all the hidden dangers first. He Donglin stood at his left rear, his gaze dark and heavy. That false detour you warned of, where is it? Right turn after the 3rd tunnel segment. What happens if they follow the chart? They'll step onto an unstable hollow cavity. Lin Yan watched the 3 scouts' positions, voice dropping to a low hush. The first footfall won't kill them outright, but the second group rushing down behind will all perish together. He Donglin asked no further questions. He understood perfectly. Qinzhou Resources had never sought a safe passage for all. Their plan was to sacrifice as few lives as possible to reveal the viable route, then seize control of every survivor afterward. Zhou Xiaoman edged to the pit's rim, leaning down to listen for 2 heartbeats before her features drained of color. It's no good. The backflow in the main ventilation shaft has shifted. In 30 seconds, that narrow auxiliary wind shaft to the left will flood with air first. Lin Yan's pulse skipped. In his past life, the main shaft had stabilized first. Now even the order of activation had been rewritten. He snapped his gaze to the half-collapsed maintenance wind shaft on the pit's left. Narrow, pitch black, draped with frayed wire mesh. It looked far deadlier than the main shaft, so no one had paid it any mind. But he remembered. Beneath that wind shaft ran old support girders for maintenance access. Once filled with pressurized air, its footing would hold far better than the hollow void beneath the main shaft. That slim advantage was all they needed. Qinzhou Resources' men were already pushing the 3 scouts forward. The young woman's legs shook violently. She glanced back, yet no one stepped forward to defend her. The freelance diggers seethed, yet none dared make the first move against the company crew. Lin Tingxia clenched her jaw so hard her knuckles whitened. Brother, I know. Lin Yan waited no longer. He stepped forward, his quiet voice cutting cleanly through the growing hum of tension around the pit. He Donglin. Follow me left. The crowd froze the instant he spoke. Even the 3 selected scouts twisted their heads to stare. The Qinzhou Resources representative's face turned cold instantly. That wind shaft is derelict. Anyone who enters it will die. Lin Yan ignored him entirely, locking eyes with He Donglin. Descend with me now, and we claim the first access to the ore veins. Wait another 10 seconds, and we'll end up as bodies paving their path. He Dongling's gaze swept across the main shaft, the abandoned wind shaft, and the terrified scouts. He was no reckless gambler, but he would never surrender his fate to others' manipulation. Ma Zha, move out with him. Zhou Xiaoman swallowed thickly, squeezing her way to Lin Yan's side at once. I'll take point to track the wind currents. No. Lin Yan hauled her back to stand directly behind his right shoulder. Second position only. Report airflow shifts. Don't test unstable ground ahead. Lin Tingxia opened her mouth to protest, but Lin Yan pressed a minor lamp and a pack of filter cloth into her palms first. Stay here at the pit head. The second the main shaft collapses, pull the crowd back. Do not let anyone surge forward. But, obey me. Just those 2 words. A lump swelled in Lin Tingxia's throat, yet she did not argue further. She only stared unblinkingly at Lin Yan, as if memorizing every step he took. Meanwhile, Qinzhou Resources' crew grew frantic. Stop him. 2 suited workers lunged to block the wind shaft's entrance. Lin Yan moved faster. He planted a foot on a crumbled iron railing, vaulted over, and swung his black rock pickaxe horizontally, shoving one man stumbling backward. The worker tried to lunge again, only to slip on loose dust lining the shaft's edge, nearly tumbling into the dark void below before scrambling back in terror. Their retreat cleared the path entirely. Go! Lin Yan was the first to dive into the wind shaft. The tunnel was claustrophobically narrow, barely wide enough for one person to squeeze sideways. Rust-eaten maintenance girders lined the floor, broken at every few intervals. Wind howled up from the depths, throbbing against their eardrums. The beam of the minor lamp only illuminated clouds of falling gray dust. Zhou Xiaoman hugged the wall as she followed, barely 2 steps down before shouting a warning. Hollow space below the left. Noted. Lin Yan never slowed, shifting his weight to step onto an intact fixed crossbeam on the right, sliding half a meter down its length to dodge the rotting empty girder beneath. He Donglin copied his movement seamlessly right behind him. Ma Zhe and Zhe followed, faces drained of color, yet daring not to lag. The wind intensified by the second. This was no ordinary mine draft. It felt as though the entire abandoned shaft was caving inward, sucking everything toward a single point far below. Lin Yan's resolve steadied. The wind was funneling down this passage. His gamble had paid off. They reached the 3rd segment when a shrill scream echoed from above. Disaster had struck the main shaft. A thunderous crash followed a heartbeat later, not loose stones falling, but an entire hollow cavity caving inward, swallowing men and rope alike. Screams and furious shouts erupted at the pit head, sending tremors rippling even through the wind shaft beneath their feet. Zhou Xiaoman's spine prickled, her voice cracking with shock. They stepped into the void. Pay it no mind. Lin Yan's tone stayed low and unyielding. Keep descending. After that, he Donglin and the others held no trace of doubt left. The main shaft was a death trap. This forgotten wind shaft was their only viable escape route. At the bottommost stretch of the tunnel, a slanted black cavern opened before them, the junction connecting the wind shaft to an abandoned maintenance corridor. At the corridor's far end stood a cracked wall, with a rusted iron stake driven deep into the rock. Half a weathered mine sign dangled from the stake. Set into the base of the sign was a lock slot. Wedged inside the slot sat a triangular marker, forged from a material halfway between iron and raw stone. They'd found it. Lin Yan did not quicken his pace. If anything, he moved with even greater caution. In his past life, the deadliest hazard of Shaft 7 was not the entrance itself, but the seemingly solid or slab directly before the marker. Anyone rushing forward would crack the stone and plummet through. He raised a hand. Halt. Zhou Xiaoman had been about to dart ahead, forcing herself to skid to a stop. Danger ahead. Do not step on the 3rd slab. Lin Yan tilted his minor lamp downward, revealing a hairline curved fracture hidden beneath dust. I'll go first. He pressed flat against the left wall to cross the gap, planting 2 firm steps, before leaping from the edge of the 2nd slab to land beside the marker. The ancient slab shuddered under his weight, yet it held fast. The others behind him held their breath in unison. Lin Yan wrapped his fingers around the triangular marker. Ice cold, dense, heavy. It felt like gripping a shard of frozen bone torn straight from the earth's core. He wrenched it free in one sharp pull. Rust crumbled off the marker as it slid out of the slot. The instant it dislodged, the black wall beside them stirred. Fine dark veins glowing faintly along every fracture line. Proof the black mineral veins had awakened. Zhou Xiaoman stared in awe. It's truly the black vein. He Donglin's expression hardened with grim satisfaction. They held the first advantage. They held the authority. Screams and shouts from the collapsed main shaft still drifted down to them. Yet the noise felt distant, muted all at once. Lin Yan stared down at the marker clutched in his palm, which grew faintly warm against his skin. The Orvain Chronicle did not flip to a new page, but a familiar thrumming hummed up his arm, making one truth crystal clear. He had rewritten this path before fate could claim it. Retreat. He spun to lead them back upward. The main shaft collapse has thrown the pit head into chaos. We slip out while the crowd's distracted. Their ascent back up the wind shaft moved far faster than their descent. Every man knew the immense value of the marker Lin Yan carried. They charged upward, and the pit head's racket grew louder the closer they drew. Weeping, furious shouts directed at Qinzhou resources, cries for rope to pull survivors free, and voices spreading news that the left wind shaft was passable, that Lin Yan's group had emerged unharmed. Word traveled fast. By the time Lin Yan hauled himself over the wind shaft's rim back to ground level, the crowd had devolved into unbridled turmoil. A massive gash split the edge of the main shaft, loose rocks still showering downward. Only one of the 3 scouts had climbed back out, covered head to toe in blood, huddled on the ground, clinging to a rope, shaking uncontrollably. Qinzhou Resources staff struggled to regain control of the crowd, yet their efforts only pushed the freelance diggers farther away. Every pair of eyes locked onto Lin Yan, more precisely, onto the triangular marker in his grip. He stood beside the wind shaft, dust coating every inch of his frame. A raw scrape split open across the back of his hand, disheveled, battered, unremarkable at first glance. Yet when he lifted the marker high above his head amid the surrounding chaos, a hush crashed over the entire pit head. Complete silence. Every shout died mid-breath. The Qinzhou Resources representative's face drained of all color. Impossible. Lin Yan met his gaze, his lips barely curving. Your chart only exists to bury people. From this moment forward, I decide the safe paths through these mines. His single sentence turned the crowd's wavering loyalties irrevocably. The false schematic had just proven lethal, lives lost in the main shaft collapse. And Lin Yan had braved universal doubt to descend first, then return alive bearing the access marker. Whoever held the marker held the truth of the route. Zhou Xiaoman scrambled out of the wind shaft behind him, planting her feet and shouting loud enough for everyone to hear. See for yourselves. The first to descend doesn't always die, but anyone following that fake chart will meet certain death. The crowd erupted in full uproar. It took more than a minute for the chaos at the pithead to settle into tense stillness. Debris continued to spill from the hollow cavity on the main shaft's edge. One of the scouts sat trembling on the dirt, another dragged to the crowd's perimeter for emergency treatment, and the third remained trapped underground with no sign of rescue. Qinzhou Resources crew fought to calm the mob, yet every attempt only drove the freelance diggers farther apart. No one dared trust the laminated chart outright anymore. Yet neither did anyone dare provoke an open fight. Lin Yan possessed the critical marker. Qinzhou Resources controlled lighting, manpower, medical supplies, and complete mining equipment. Every soul present understood they would soon be forced to pick a side. All waited for someone to lay all cards on the table. The survey representative made the first move. His expression was rigid, every trace of warmth gone. Yet he straightened his jacket to maintain a veneer of negotiation. Mr. Lin. He positioned himself across the pit, projecting his voice to reach the entire crowd. We commend you for retrieving the marker ahead of schedule. But one marker alone cannot secure the entire mine zone. We hold the water reserves, lighting, medicine, shift rotation crews, and defensive manpower. All the infrastructure required to operate here. Let us strike an agreement. He lifted a hand as if offering a generous compromise. You keep possession of the marker, and we contribute supplies and labor for joint excavation. Your team gains priority access to the shaft, plus a fixed share of all or yields. The freelance diggers out here will also receive a cut of the profits. A murmur of temptation rippled through the crowd. Not because his words rang sincere, but the deal sounded deceptively fair on the surface. Lin Yan retained ownership of the marker. Everyone else stood to gain a portion of their profits. Compared to violent conflict, it seemed a stable resolution. Lin Tingxiao watched hesitation creep across dozens of faces, a cold weight settling in her chest. This was Qinzhou Resources' most dangerous tactic. They rarely resorted to outright seizure. Instead, they trapped their rivals inside an appealing seeming cage of compromise. Lin Yan did not reject the offer immediately. He simply studied the representative, feigning genuine consideration. A fixed profit share? Correct. What percentage? Your crew receives 20% of all black ore extracted in the first round. We can revisit the terms for a larger split if our collaboration remains steady. Zhou Xiaoman nearly laughed aloud beside him. 20%. To hold the primary access marker and only claim a fifth of all profits. Their audacity knew no bounds. Lin Yin gave no sign of recognizing the insult, merely nodding slowly. That sounds reasonable. A flicker of cautious hope sparked in the representative's eyes. Lin Yan's next sentence crushed it flat. Unfortunately, your chart is only fit to wrap corpses. Absolute silence descended over the pit head. Not the stunned hush of shock, but the heavy quiet that came when all pretense of diplomacy shattered completely. The Qinzhou Resources representative's features darkened sharply. What exactly are you implying? The meaning is plain. Lin Yin tossed the triangular marker into Zhou Xiaoman's waiting hands, then knelt to tear a stiff damp cardboard sheet from a rotting crate on the ground, gesturing sharply toward the man. Hand over the chart. The representative stood frozen, refusing to move. No one else in the crowd dared step forward. He Donglin advanced one pace, his voice low yet unignorable. Give it to him. The Qinzhou Resources crew glanced uneasily toward their leader. The company representative stared at He Donglin, then shot Lin in a 2-second glare, before finally handing over the laminated map. He was far from backing down. He too wanted to see exactly what flaws Lin Yin could expose. Lin Yin spread the map flat on a relatively level stone slab beside the mine shaft mouth. He pressed a mining lamp down onto it, flooding the entire route chart with stark, washed-out white light. First flaw. His finger tapped the third branching tunnel behind the main shaft. This line is marked as a right-side safety cutoff drift. But the truth is, the entire passage to the right is an empty, hollow, false tunnel. The team that descended just now triggered the first collapse right here. That's nonsense, someone from the opposing crowd shot back at once. The collapse was only caused by an abrupt shift in underground air pressure. Quiet. Lin Yin cut him off mid-sentence without a glance, sliding his finger straight down the page. Second flaw. You've labeled the left ventilation shaft an abandoned pit and marked the main shaft as the primary entry point. But today, the ventilation shaft was the one that stayed stable, not the main shaft. If you'd conducted a full geological survey, you could never mix up the order of primary and secondary air dampers. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as people replayed the chaos they'd just witnessed. The main shaft had caved in. The ventilation shaft had held firm. Everyone had seen it. The man from Qinzhou Resources twitched his jaw, clinging to his stance. Ventilation patterns fluctuate unpredictably. One single incident of deviation doesn't discredit the entire map. It does. Lin Yin lifted his gaze to meet his eyes. Because the third flaw is the most deceptive mark on this chart. His fingertip landed on an unassuming thin, curved line tucked out of sight. Right here. You've drawn this stretch as a detour buffer zone, but it connects directly to a hot mineral dust zone. Anyone retreating this way after a collapse will inhale toxic mine dust, grow weak-limbed, lose sound judgment, and end up hurting back toward the main shaft. In other words, Lin Yan's voice turned icy cold. This map wasn't made to guide people to safety. It was drawn to line them up to walk into disaster. The words drove into every onlooker's mind like a nail hammered home. Those who'd hesitated moments earlier paled instantly. A middle-aged man clutching a bucket of mineral water stumbled 2 steps backward. He wasn't stepping away out of fear of Lin Yin. It suddenly hit him. He'd nearly followed this faulty chart toward the main shaft alongside everyone else. A gaunt, stick-thin young man locked his eyes rigidly on the map, his lips trembling for a long moment, before he snapped his head up. My older brother headed down the path your men pointed out a little while ago. He still hasn't resurfaced. His voice cracked on the final word. A woman standing beside him instantly welled up with tears. They told us following the map would keep us safe. My husband insisted on sending me out first, then went back to help haul rope for your crew. Her speech dissolved into broken sobs before she finished. Further back, an elderly man who'd kept his distance crumpled the hand-copied route sketch clutched in his fist, hurled it to the ground, and stamped it hard underfoot. Useless so-called safety blueprint. You're using ordinary folks as sacrificial test subjects for your tunnels. Public panic did not simply boil over in a flash. It unfolded layer by layer. First came paralyzing dread at how close they'd come to harm. Then recognition, as each person matched the risks to their own loved ones. Last came unbridled rage. The staff from Qinzhou Resources could no longer hold their ground. You're inciting unrest among these people. Underground mining always carries fatal risks. No one can guarantee every single tunnel route is 100% secure. Can you? The fiery retort hung in the air, silencing the crowd briefly. It was a fair question. Who could offer such an absolute guarantee? Did Lin Yin dare to claim he could? Lin Tingxia's heart skipped a beat. She knew making overblown promises in this moment would only backfire horribly. Yet Lin Yin didn't so much as blink. I won't swear no one will lose their lives down here. But I can guarantee one thing. He tapped the laminated map, then lifted a finger toward the intact ventilation shaft. I know which passages lead to survival and which to ruin. I'll lay out every deadly route plainly for everyone. And I'll test the safe paths myself first. Your operation works the opposite way. You send civilians ahead to clear unknown tunnels, and when a collapse occurs, you dismiss it as natural airflow fluctuation. This isn't a miscalculation. This is human trial mining at the cost of innocent lives. Chaos erupted around the mine shaft entrance. Several people shouted furious accusations at the Qinzhou Resources representatives. Others tossed the official route markers they'd been handed back at their feet. Many more drifted toward Lin Yin as they shouted, finally finding a leader they could trust. Zhou Xiaoman seized the opening and stepped firmly to the front of the crowd. You all saw who was the first to venture underground and retrieve the core marker. Groups that followed the fake map got trapped by collapse. Those who stuck with Lin Yin returned safely with the marker intact. Anyone who still trusts this flawed chart can march straight into the main shaft on their own. Don't drag the rest of us down with you. Her voice rang clear and crisp, carrying to every corner of the gathering. Voices echoed in agreement at once. She's right. If you want to test that route, go alone. Stop dragging uninvolved civilians as bait. It was then that He Donglin finally spoke up. He had no interest in rallying crowds with empty slogans, but his single statement carried more weight than any chorus of shouts. The two men stranded in the west branching tunnel were brought back unharmed by Lin Yin. 0 casualties. He was also the one who scouted the viable path through abandoned shaft number 7 ahead of everyone else. He Donglin turned to face the Qinzhou Resources group, his face impassive, his tone colder than the frigid wind swirling out of the mine. I lead rescue operations relying on proven ground knowledge, not blind guesswork. Today, I stand with him. His declaration swayed every wavering onlooker completely. Men like He Donglin never make hollow gestures of support. His public alignment meant he'd witnessed Lin Yan's safe passage firsthand. The company representative's face turned a sickly shade of blue-green. Still, he understood that pushing back harder would cost them all remaining trust from the civilians. He drew a deep breath, forcing his simmering anger under control. Mr. Lin, winning control of this single shaft doesn't mean you'll outmatch our operation across every mining zone later on. Is that so? Lin Yin lifted the laminated map by its edge and glanced at it briefly. For now, the rules of this shaft are no longer yours to dictate. He tossed the chart back to land at the man's feet. The rigid plastic cover smacked sharply against stone with a crisp crack. The sound was faint, yet it stripped away the false mask Qinzhou Resources wore, the pretense that they acted solely to protect everyone's lives. As the representative bent to retrieve the map, Lin Yan's peripheral vision caught the stack of metal equipment crates set aside beside them. Most of the paint had worn away along the crate sides, leaving only a faded partial logo visible. Qinzhou. These were not borrowed crates from a temporary survey team. They belonged to the company itself. Lin Yin ground his molars tight. In his past life, Gu Qinzhou had only expanded operations into shallow mining zones far later in the timeline. But now, Qinzhou Resources had moved ahead of schedule, deploying falsified maps and their ruthless trial mining tactics long before they should have appeared. What he dismantled today was more than just a flawed route chart. It was a grasping hand that had prematurely reached into this mine shaft. Cold underground wind gusted through cracks in the mine walls, whistling against the faded logo on the crate. It sounded as though some unseen force deep beneath the earth was tallying up every one of their misdeeds. A heavy hush fell over the shaft mouth, every pair of eyes fixed on Lin Yin, waiting for him to speak. Not because he spoke loudest, but because he held the core marker and had proven he knew the only safe passage out. The Qinzhou Resources crew retreated to the outer edge of the crowd, no longer daring to press their authority. Civilians kept a wary eye on them, while subconsciously shuffling closer to Lin Yin, like scattered wanderers huddling around a campfire for warmth. He Donglin stood at Lin Yan's left shoulder, scanning the assembled crowd. What's our next move? At his question, even those who'd lingered far back pricked up their ears to listen. Lin Yin stared down at the triangular core marker resting in his palm. It felt cold, heavy, more akin to an actual key than ever before. In his past life, he'd watched others wield this very marker to turn survival into a privilege only they controlled, twisting mineral resources into chains to subjugate ordinary miners. Back then, he could only observe, endure, and scrape out tiny chances to stay alive within the boundaries others set. This lifetime, The marker belonged to him. He would not repeat their cruel system. We establish ground rules first. Lin Yan lifted his head to address the crowd. Hundreds plan to descend the shaft soon. Disorder will only multiply fatal risks underground. Anyone who hoards resources or cuts ahead will endanger the entire group. Murmurs stirred through the gathering, yet no one voiced an argument. He continued laying out the terms. Rule 1. All water sources are collective property. We connect the stable water supply at the valve chamber first. Anyone needing drinking water or filter packs must register before collecting supplies. First offense of water theft results in expulsion from the camp. Repeat offenders will face permanent suspension from all underground work. The announcement drained color from several people who'd plotted to sneak extra water for themselves. Lin Tingxia stood nearby, already flipping open a small notebook. Lin Yan shot her a glance. Document every detail. Understood. Lin Tingxia replied promptly. She stepped forward, the dust-covered notebook and cheap ballpoint pen carrying immense authority. Everyone could tell Lin Yan's declarations were no empty threats. He intended to govern this mining site properly. Rule 2. Lin Yan pointed toward the mouth of abandoned shaft number 7. I control the order of underground descent. The first rotation permits only 3 groups of personnel. Those capable of heavy labor, those trained to secure tunnel barriers, and those able to retrieve mineral ore. The elderly, children, and severely injured must remain in the outer camp. No crowding the shaft entrance allowed. And who gave you the right to make that call? A 30-something man with a long, narrow face stepped forward, gripping a broken iron pipe. His features twisted with resentment. We all acknowledge you claimed the marker and scouted the safe path. That's your skill. But you cannot arbitrarily decide who gets to enter the tunnels and who does not. Where does that leave the rest of us? His grievance held some merit, and unease rippled across many faces. Lin Yan met his gaze, his tone unchanging. If you disagree, you're free to leave right now. The main shaft hasn't fully collapsed, and Qinzhou Resources is still accepting volunteers to work their routes. I won't stop you if you dare take that risk. The long-faced man froze. He did not dare. Lin Yan pressed on. You stand here alive today because someone like me volunteered to tread the most lethal stretches of tunnel before any of you stepped foot underground. Since I've borne that danger first, I hold the authority to set the order for our initial descent. If anyone believes they possess better knowledge of the underground passages, step forward and lead your own team down an alternate route. Silence blanketed the shaft mouth. Not a single person dared advance. Everyone knew those who'd volunteered to test the other routes still remained trapped underground. Rule 3. Lin Yan swept his gaze over the crowd, his voice deepening with gravity. Critical underground intelligence is not handed out for free. Maps, hazard locations, and mining zone regulations are available to anyone willing to trade with supplies, labor shifts, overnight guard duty, or underground mining work. No free handouts for those who refuse to contribute. Survival routes are reserved only for those who pull their weight. Zhou Xiaoman listened, her eyes lighting up with admiration. This was exactly why she respected Lin Yan above all others. He was no naive charitable savior, nor a lone wolf hoarding all safety knowledge for himself. He treated survival guidance as a vital commodity to be exchanged fairly, yet left enough room for every person to earn a chance at living safely. Once this system took root, civilians would naturally rally to his side. He Donglin said nothing, merely nodding toward Ma Lao and Aja. Guard the perimeter. Clear both sides of the shaft entrance to prevent overcrowding. His gesture cemented his public alliance with Lin Yan. Lin Yan drafted the rules. He Donglin enforced them. The scattered complaints from the crowd faded almost entirely. Lin Tingxia stepped into the gap to coordinate logistics. Come register beside me. List your access to water, medical supplies, practical skills, and any injuries you've sustained. At her direction, the chaotic free-for-all shifted into structured order. A queue formed at once. People set buckets and filter packs beside her feet, while 2 young men who'd nearly been forced into the deadly test tunnels volunteered to maintain the water valve chamber and extend the water lines. This was the very beginning of organized order. Rough, unpolished, fraught with hardship, but far better than blind, panicked scrambling. The first group of underground miners was quickly selected. He Donglin picked 2 steady, level-headed workers to join the team. Zhou Xiaoman would not descend. She stayed posted at the shaft mouth to monitor underground airflow and watch for threats around the perimeter. Lin Yan would lead the team personally to survey the primary black or vein wall. The tunnels beneath the mine grew colder and darker than they had during his earlier trip to retrieve the core marker. After he slotted the triangular marker back into its lock groove, the sealed branch tunnel housing the black or vein split open slowly. like a stone maw finally opening to reveal its depths. The tunnel walls glowed with deep black luster, crisscrossed with faint silver streaks that flickered on and off, as if the rock itself breathed beneath the earth. His first pickaxe strike sent sparks flying into the dimness. Ma Lao gasped in shock. It's genuine black or vein material. He swung the pickaxe a second, then a third time. When a palm-sized chunk of black ore split free from the wall, every man's eyes widened in awe. It was dense, unyieldingly hard, streaked with pale silver gray along its jagged edges. This mineral was universally recognized as unnegotiable hard currency across every mining zone. Zhou Xiaoman, crouched at the shaft mouth to watch the ore being hauled to the surface, could barely suppress a grin. We've truly secured the vein. Her exclamation ignited a wave of quiet elation rippling through the waiting queue. Retrieving the core marker had only granted authority over the mine. Recovering tangible ore was concrete proof that their new safe settlement was no empty promise. Yet their moment of relief barely settled before new trouble emerged. As dusk crept close to full nightfall, two burly men who'd kept silent all day seized the chance, while others hauled supply crates. One charged into the registration station, knocking over the supply crate, while the other lunged for the cloth sack where everyone assumed the core marker was stored. They moved fast, but Lin Yin had anticipated their scheme long before they struck. The sack had never held the marker at all. When he'd laid out the 3 core rules earlier, he'd fastened the triangular marker securely against his lower back, hidden beneath his clothing. The sack only contained worthless scrap or fragments and a broken length of rope. He's grabbed the marker. The man clutching the sack froze the instant he lifted it, confused by its negligible weight. Zhou Xiaoman's warning shout cut through the air at once. Attempted theft of the core marker. Ma Lao and Aja spun around instinctively. He Donglin reacted faster than anyone, launching a kick that sent the second assailant crashing to the ground. Lin Yin closed the distance in a few quick strides, swinging his black or pickaxe horizontally to ram the thief clutching the empty sack hard in the torso, forcing him to his knees. The cloth sack spilled open on impact, 2 lumps of waste or rolling across the stone ground for everyone to see. The 2 burly men's faces drained to ashen gray. They hadn't merely gambled and lost. They'd walked straight into a trap Lin Yin had laid in advance. I stated the rules clearly. Lin Yin stared down at the kneeling man, his voice flat and frigid. The regulations are not open for negotiation. They are the terms you must abide by if you wish to survive here. The man tried to make a feeble excuse. We only wanted to secure the marker in case it went missing. We were just checking its contents. Lin Yin planted his boot firmly over the man's wrist. Spout another meaningless excuse, and you'll lose the use of your hands permanently. Dead silence fell over the entire shaft mouth, so quiet one could hear a pin drop. Every person who'd privately plotted to seize the marker or hoard or immediately abandoned their schemes. They understood a critical truth now. Lin Yin had no intention of claiming one shaft then abandoning the survivors. He planned to establish permanent control over this mining zone, and he possessed both the resolve and the strength to enforce that control. He Donglin glanced at the 2 subdued thieves. Drag them beyond the perimeter. They are banned from approaching the shaft entrance for the entire night. Zhou Xiaoman patted her chest in relief, then turned to grin at Lin Tingxia. Your brother thinks of every trap ahead of time. Lin Tingxia righted the toppled registration crate and knelt to retrieve her notebook, releasing a quiet sigh of relief. She finally grasped the full scope of his planning. Lin Yin did not rely on spur-of-the-moment reactions to maintain order. He'd mapped out long-term survival arrangements from the very start. Once the first batch of black ore was hauled above ground, the open clearing beside the shaft mouth was quickly organized into a functional makeshift camp. Water buckets lined one side, medical supply crates sat neatly on another. Miners scheduled for underground work formed a separate queue, while the injured and elderly retreated to a wind-shielded corner ringed by a low stone barrier stacked from loose rock. It was far from a complete, permanent encampment, yet it possessed the skeletal structure of a safe refuge. The Qinzhou Resources crew watched from a distance, no longer daring to interfere directly. The civilian population's loyalty had fully shifted to Lin Yan's group. The core marker and valuable were rested under their guard. Every witness had seen that Lin Yan was capable not only of seizing control of the mine, but defending it as well. But just as this fragile order stabilized, a low resonant rumble echoed from the deepest underground tunnels. A deep, thrumming hum, as though the entire black ore vein far beneath the earth had been tapped by a single knuckle. Zhou Xiaoman whipped around sharply. Did all of you hear that? Lin Yin was already standing upright. He'd heard more than the sound alone. A familiar burning heat surged to his palm at the same time. The record of or vein resonance flipped open of its own accord, not to the first page, but to a faded gray sheet hidden directly behind it, which cleared to reveal fresh, glowing text stirred awake by the underground rumble. Black or vein activity levels spiking abnormally. A second line materialized beneath the first. The first or tide will arrive far ahead of schedule. Lin Yan's pupils constricted sharply. A third line completed the warning. Estimated time of arrival, 48 hours from present. His fingers tightened around the record's cover until the wooden handle of his or pickaxe grated faintly against his palm. In his past life, the first or tide had struck days later than this predicted window. The timeline had not merely shifted forward by minutes or hours. It had jumped ahead by 2 full days. This meant every future event he'd memorized from his previous life was beginning to diverge from what he knew. The crowd beside the shaft mouth still buzzed with excitement over securing the first mining zone and hauling up black ore. But as Lin Yan stared at the glowing written warning, a cold dread seeped down his spine inch by inch. He had won the opening battle for control of the mine. Yet from this moment onward, he could no longer rely solely on the foreknowledge of his past life to survive what lay ahead. Lin Yan kept the lines of text from the record of or vein resonance hidden from everyone else. 48 hours. The number weighed heavy in his mind. A solid block of cold black or pressed against his skull, heavy enough to make his teeth ache. The crowd at the shaft mouth remained wrapped in hopeful excitement. Groups clustered around the first haul of black, or to examine it. Others rushed to register their usable skills for underground labor. Several already calculated how much extra water or mining shifts they might earn tomorrow. Only Lin Yan knew tomorrow's minor resource disputes were irrelevant. The true crisis would arrive 2 days from now. He closed the record of or vein resonance and lifted his gaze toward the flimsy, low stone barrier they'd stacked earlier. It was far too thin to withstand an or tide. With such a large group of civilians gathered, their basic rules remained incomplete. A single breach in their makeshift defenses would unravel every bit of fragile order they'd built at the first mining zone. He Donglin. I'm here. Don't sleep tonight. He Donglin shot him a glance. Without asking why, he only said, Where do we stand guard? The mine shaft, the ledgers, and the water supply lines. Lin Yan drew 3 lines on the ground with his hand. The night watch will be split into 3 shifts. The first patrols the shaft, the second monitors the water, and the third keeps an eye on crowd rotations. Anyone who needs to swap posts must inform you first, then Lin Tingxia. Lin Tingxia had just finished sorting the registration log and lifted her head the moment her name was called. What do I need to add to my records? A new column. Lin Yan pulled the notebook from her hand and jotted 3 words at the bottom. Contribution log marked down everyone who's hauled or stood night watch, gone underground, or delivered water. From this moment on, resources won't go to whoever shouts loudest. Distribution will follow this record. Lin Tingxia froze for a second before nodding quickly. She knew full well how critical these 3 words were. This shifted survival from a free-for-all scramble to a measured system based on labor. Zhou Xiaoman leaned over to peek at the notebook. You're really setting up a formal merit system now. If we don't, bloodshed will break out by tomorrow. Lin Yan handed the log back, his tone flat. When crowds grow large, trust frays faster than rough roads. Zhou Xiaoman wrinkled her lips. What about me? You're banned from underground work. Again, guard the outer perimeter and listen for gossip. Lin Yan fixed his gaze on her. Note anyone spreading rumors, stoking conflict, or planning to strike a deal with Qinzhou Resources for better supplies. Zhou Xiaoman had been ready to argue, but her eyes lit up at the rest of the assignment. This was right up her alley. Got it. I'll sniff out all the schemers lurking around tonight. She had barely left when He Donglin marched over the perimeter guards. 3 veteran rescue team members, 2 new recruits who'd accompanied the underground shift before, plus Lao Ma and Azha. Enough manpower to fully secure the shaft and water lines. Lin Yan cut straight to laying down rules without extra words. Starting now, water will be rationed via marked vouchers. Each person gets 1 unique token. You must check in with Tingxia's log before collecting water. Anyone who steals water will be expelled from the perimeter on the first offense and face permanent banishment on the second. His words stirred murmurs among the outer crowd. Someone muttered vicious curses under their breath. Others flinched, yanking their hands away from the water buckets they'd been reaching for. Lin Yan ignored the unrest and pressed on with his regulations. Underground operations are restructured too. The first team mines, or alone. The second haulers wait until the first crew surfaces before descending. Only 2 sentries will remain below to secure the tunnel lines. Anyone crowding the tunnels underground will lose underground access forever. A tall, thin man could not hold his tongue. You micromanage every little thing over just one mine shaft. Lin Yin turned to face him. Just one shaft. Beneath this shaft lies, ore, connecting passages, and access to deeper levels. Whoever holds this ground when the ore rush hits holds the key to survival. You see only a tunnel. I see lives hanging in the balance. The man opened his mouth, yet could find no retort. Donglin stepped half a pace forward. He did not need to speak. His rigid, imposing aura silenced the remaining grumbles instantly. After the rules were set, relative calm held for over half an hour. Trouble only flared once. Zhou Xiaoman returned. She crouched beside Lin Yin, voice lowered to a whisper. Words spreading outside. People claim you hold maps to safe tunnels, but only share them with your inner circle. They also say Qinzhou Resources will post supply offers tomorrow. Anyone who defects gets priority water and climbing ropes. Lin Yin did not lift his head. That all. There's more. Zhou Xiaoman glanced toward the water lines. Someone stirred up a filtered water barrel, churning up all the sediment at the bottom. 2 old rope hooks are missing, along with 1 canvas sack used to carry your crates. Lin Yin finally looked up. This was far more than petty theft. It was a calculated test. A test to see if Lin Tingxiao would panic when the water supply was disrupted. A test to see if Donglin would be stretched thin by missing tools. A test to gauge whether the marker tokens and ledgers could be snatched amid chaos. Qinzhou Resources operatives had made their move. Don't raise the alarm. Lin Yin stood and walked over to inspect the water lines. The muddy barrel had not been overturned completely, only half its contents disturbed. The stolen rope hooks were worn, not the new ones. The missing canvas sack had been left right beside the registration crate. None of the acts were lethal on their own, yet each one was deliberately disruptive. This was intentional sabotage. Lin Yin turned back, then moved the canvas sack he'd kept tucked behind his waist to a visible spot, and shifted the registration log to rest on the outer edge of a stone barrier. Lin Tingxia caught his meaning, her heart tightening. You're laying bait to catch the culprits? If I don't, they'll grow bolder tomorrow. What should I do? Keep recording contributions, as usual. Lin Yin spoke quietly. The steadier you stay, the more desperate they'll grow. Sure enough, chaos erupted when the second shift rotated. First, shouts went up that another water barrel had been overturned by the supply lines. As the water guards turned to respond, someone else deliberately knocked over a half basket of broken ore, scattering chunks everywhere. The queuing crowd instinctively scattered, creating a gap beside the mine shaft. That split-second opening was all they needed. 2 figures darted forward one after another. One lunged for the registration log. The other reached for the canvas sack. Their movements were crisp and coordinated, clearly premeditated, not impulsive theft. But before their hands closed around their targets, both took a hard kick to the spine. Donglin charged in from the left, Lao Ma tackled from the right, pinning the intruders flat against the stone ground. The second thief, clutching the sack, tried to spin and run, only for the bag to be ripped clean from his grasp. Lin Yin upended the sack without hesitation. Clattering onto the ground spilled no marker tokens, only a handful of crushed or fragments, and a frayed length of rope. The surrounding crowd fell silent for a beat, then erupted into shouts. They really were after the official markers. And the ledger too? They're trying to tear our settlement apart from the inside out. The man pinned to the ground still tried to make excuses. I just wanted to keep the supplies safe, so I moved them out of harm's way. Lin Yin knelt down to meet his eyes. You were safeguarding supplies. Then tell me who sent you. The man's jaw twitched, his gaze darting wildly. In that fleeting glance, Lin Yin understood everything. It was not that he dared not confess. He was waiting for outside accomplices to stage a rescue. Lin Yin stood and swept his gaze across several onlookers lingering on the perimeter, pretending to be innocent bystanders. Does everyone see what's happening here? Qinzhou Resources hasn't stormed our shaft or seized our ore tonight. They're attacking our system of order instead. Once the water lines, mine shaft, and records fall into disarray, you'll turn on each other and destroy this safe haven yourselves. They won't need to lift a finger. All they have to do is set out a single barrel of clean water, and you'll rush over to join them. The previously noisy crowd fell abruptly silent. His words struck home. Many wore stricken expressions. They had indeed considered switching sides, figuring they would follow whoever offered more survival supplies. Now the 2 captured intruders stood as stark proof of what that selfish mindset would bring. Lin Yin rose, his voice dropping to a heavier, grimmer tone. We add one more rule effective immediately. All shaft sentry posts, hauling assignments, and underground mining slots will be allocated solely by contribution records. Those who stood night watch get priority work positions. Those who hauled or received first access to water. Anyone caught stealing, stirring unrest, or colluding with outside factions will be expelled permanently. We do not feed idle hands here, nor do we tolerate those hedging their bets between factions. Someone murmured a quiet question. What if more refugees arrive later? More people? Lin Yan glanced at the speaker. Then we need stricter logging, tiered resource distribution, and even greater priority for those who put in labor. Survival is earned one bucket of water, one dangerous tunnel trip at a time. Anyone looking for handouts can seek them from Qinzhou Resources. No one stirred an inch. He Donglin hauled the two intruders to their feet and dragged them toward the outer boundary. You are banned from approaching the mine shaft for the rest of the night. Come near again, and you will be crippled. The onlookers on the perimeter stepped aside to clear a path without hesitation. Zhou Xiaoman watched from the back and clicked her tongue. He solidified our order for good this time. She was not talking about the two expelled men. She meant the rest of the crowd, once a chaotic, unruly mob. They now understood clear boundaries of what was permitted and forbidden. Lin Tingxia steadied the registration log once more and resumed recording names one by one. Lao Ma returned to his post guarding the shaft. Aja hauled away the muddy water barrel to refill and re-filter fresh supplies. He Donglin rearranged the night watch rotations for the guards. The brief chaos faded like dust kicked up by wind, swiftly suppressed. The safe outpost had not collapsed. It had grown far more organized. Lin Yan stood beside the mine shaft, watching the faint figures slipping away on the perimeter, his eyes cold and empty of warmth. This was only the first wave of attacks. Qinzhou Resources would not rely on such petty sabotage alone. Now that they had tested and weakened the settlement's rules, their next strikes would target far more valuable assets. Our people, our safe tunnel routes, and the trust of the crowd. Zhou Xiaoman wandered back over to his side once more. There's another new rumor circulating. Speak. Qinzhou Resources will set up a supply stall at dawn tomorrow. Free clean water, brand new climbing ropes, and compressed ration cakes handed out on the spot. She licked her parched lips and lowered her voice to add a grim addendum. They've stopped targeting our mine shaft directly this time. They're coming to poach our people instead. The next morning, a restless tension hung thick outside the mine shaft. It was not the restlessness of an impending fight. It was anxiety and divided loyalties gnawing at every person's heart. Zhou Xiaoman's intel proved accurate. Qinzhou Resources had set up a supply stall at first light. 1 barrel of purified water, 2 bundles of brand new climbing ropes, stacks of compressed ration cakes. The supplies were not abundant, yet placed prominently where every passerby could see them. Shouts drifted over, quiet yet cutting straight to everyone's core desires. Join Qinzhou. Receive clean water up front. Volunteer for underground mining. Claim priority rope supplies. We accept wounded refugees too. Lin Yan stood half-hidden behind a stone barrier, gazing out past the mine shaft without uttering a word. He Donglin frowned first. Should we let them keep that stall open? Let them. Lin Yan flipped open last night's contribution log and tapped a finger against the pages. The longer they display their supplies, the clearer it becomes what critical shortages we face. Lin Tingxiao leaned in to look over the log with him. Dozens of names had been logged overnight, yet only a handful were reliable, capable workers. 6 had stood full night watch shifts. 5 could safely navigate underground mining tunnels. 3 excelled at hauling or without panicking or causing disruptions. Counting her, Zhou Xiaoman, and He Donglin, the first mining zone seemed packed with people. But those truly capable of holding the outpost steady through the days ahead could be counted on one hand. We still have far too few competent hands, Lin Tingxiao whispered softly. We have enough bodies, Lin Yan closed the log, but too few people we can fully rely on. The 4 of them alone could guard the shaft, yet they could not sustain operations for 2 more days. When the ore rush descended, the first casualties would always be groups with or reserves, but no labor to mine, haul, or guide people to safety. Zhou Xiaoman circled back from patrolling the outer perimeter, dust coating her features, yet her eyes burned bright with new information. I've spoken to the crowd. They're split into 3 distinct groups right now. The first wants to join us, but fears our strict rules. The second plans to grab free supplies from Qinzhou Resources first. The third group is the shrewdest. They intend to wait and watch both sides, throwing their lot in with whichever offers greater benefits. She finished with a sharp grin. None of them are simple, honest folk. That works to our advantage. Lin Yan slung his BlackRock pickaxe over one shoulder. We'll show them what true, lasting value looks like. The other 3 turned their full attention to him. Lin Yan traced 3 short lines on the dirt floor with his finger. Today I will publicly share 3 core survival techniques for shallow tunnels. How to read airflow, how to judge rock stability by sound, how to test ground footing safely. I will only teach them how to avoid immediate death. I will not reveal core or routes, black mineral vein nodes, or the timing of the ore rush. Zhou Xiaoman stared blankly for a moment before catching on. You're drawing crowds with life-saving knowledge to recruit trustworthy labor? We cannot survive relying solely on shaft rules alone. We need more capable workers within 2 days. Lin Yan stared out at the crowd with wandering, uncertain eyes. I'll share the techniques. But no one gets them for free. Minutes later, his single call drew a large crowd outside the mine shaft. Anyone eager to learn how to stay alive, gather round. But first, you will hear our rules. This summons proved far more alluring than Qinzhou Resources' barrel of water. Dozens surged forward to crowd close. A few stood apart with folded arms, ready to mock whatever he taught. Lin Yan wasted no time on dramatic build-up and began his lesson directly. First, reading airflow. In abandoned shallow tunnels, fresh living airflow flows thin and steady. Stale dead air feels thick and stifling. Test it with strips of cloth, loose hair strands, or the flame of your mine lamp. A powerful inward air current does not guarantee a safe passage. It may lead into an empty cavity. Intermittent outward gusts almost always signal a viable exit or branching fissure ahead. Second, judging rock by sound. Never step blindly onto unfamiliar ground. Tap first, listen closely. Solid stone produces a short, heavy thud. Hollow cavities echo a light, floating ring. Cracks beneath the surface create trembling reverberations. Third, testing your footing. For uncharted ground, toss small gravel first. Then shift half your weight onto 1 foot before fully committing your body weight. Loose, damp dust that fails to cling to rock walls almost always sits atop a slippery sliding layer. Any patch of dust that crumbles at the lightest touch signals imminent collapse. Whoever leaps forward first will be buried. He spoke rapidly, sentence after sentence. He did not withhold critical details, nor waste time on redundant explanations. The surrounding crowd fell quieter and quieter as he spoke. These were not empty platitudes. These were actionable skills they could test and use immediately to save their own lives. Finally, the tall, thin man from the previous day let out a sneering laugh. That's all. All you're saying is tap, listen, and test before stepping forward. Anyone could spout such obvious nonsense. He had drifted over again from the perimeter overnight, his tone dripping with contempt. Lin Yan did not spare him so much as a glance. Being able to recite words and knowing how to apply them are 2 entirely separate things. Follow me. With that, he turned and walked toward a fractured side tunnel behind the primary mining zone. Only half the debris had been cleared from the passage the night before. Loose dust coated the rock walls, and 2 half-formed cracks split the ground, ideal ground for a live demonstration. He Donglin immediately brought 2 guards to follow behind them. Lin Tingxia stayed beside the mine shaft holding the log, raising her voice to reach the lingering crowd. Anyone wishing to join our work crew must register with me first. Write down your skills, what labor you are willing to perform, and who brought you here. As she began logging new recruits, Lin Yan halted deep within the fractured tunnel. Watch closely. He lifted his pickaxe and tapped the left rock wall gently. A dull, short thud echoed out. He stepped half a pace forward and tapped a patch of paler gray ground. A hollow, ringing sound bounced upward from beneath their feet. The watching crowd paled in shock. There's empty space underneath? He can tell without even stepping foot on it. Lin Yan offered no extra explanation, scooping a handful of broken or gravel and tossing it forward. The first 2 stones rested firmly on the dust surface. The last small rock slid an inch to the right on its own. Do you see it? The damp dust won't stick in place. A seepage layer sits behind this wall. If you shift your full weight here, the surface will not crack first. The entire stretch will slide downward. The tall, thin man who'd mocked him refused to back down and lifted a foot to step onto the unstable patch. I don't see what the big fuss is about. The words barely left his mouth before half his foot pressed into the loose dust. In the next instant, the ground layer slid away from underneath like a pulled rug, sinking sharply downward. The man's face blanched white, his arms flailing wildly in panic. Lin Yan lunged forward, shoving the wooden handle of his pickaxe beneath the man's armpit and hauling him back to solid ground with brute force. The dust layer split open wide, revealing a pitch-black fissure stretching down into unseen depths. A collective gasp rippled through the onlookers. The man collapsed onto the ground, his lips trembling uncontrollably. One more step forward, and he would have fallen to his death. Lin Yan pulled his pickaxe free, his tone unchanged and calm. This is the difference between reciting words and knowing how to use them. Every rule I just shared was learned at the cost of human lives. No more mocking laughter sounded. Not only did the jeering stop, but the onlookers who'd stood apart with crossed arms earlier all shuffled forward several paces. They finally understood Lin Yan offered far more than vague advice. He handed them tangible knowledge that could keep them alive. Zhou Xiaoman seized the moment to shout out to the crowd. You hear that? Qinzhou Resources hands out water that runs dry in one day. Lin Yan teaches you tunnel navigation skills. Once learned, they stay with you to save your life forever. Her words struck every person's core fear and hope. A middle-aged man carrying a sack of sparse supplies spun around and rushed straight to Lin Tingxia's registration desk. I want to sign up. I'm strong enough to haul ore. I've got steady hands for labor. His initiative broke the hesitation of the rest of the crowd. Soon, over a dozen new names filled the pages of Lin Tingxia's log. She did not accept every volunteer unconditionally, screening them following Lin Yan's prior instructions. Those lacking physical stamina were assigned to logistics support first. Anyone with unsteady hands was posted to outer perimeter watch duty. Brave yet disobedient recruits were logged down, but granted no priority work slots. He Donglin handled assignments more bluntly still. He scanned the assembled crowd and pointed out recruits one by one. You, guard the mine shaft. You, haul or alongside Lao Ma. You stick close to Lin Yan, no wandering off alone under any circumstance. You report to the water supply lines. Master steady bucket transport first. Once assignments were handed out, the previously disorderly crowd took shape as a structured work crew. Zhou Xiaoman counted the new recruits and grinned in satisfaction. 7 new reliable hands. Counting our core group, we formed our first official work team. Lin Yan did not share her smile, his gaze drifting back to the outer perimeter. Qinzhou Resources' supply stall still stood open, yet the crowd huddled around their water barrels had thinned by half. The remaining onlookers had lost their earlier dismissive arrogance. They'd realized the truth. The two factions were not competing over a single day's ration of water. They fought to control who would guide everyone through the coming crisis. At that moment, a young man who'd just finished registering stepped forward, voice lowered with hesitation. Brother Lin, a few people out there are saying they'll grab free rations from Qinzhou tonight before coming back here. Lin Yan looked at him, speaking flatly. Let them go. The young man stared in surprise. You'd really let them defect for supplies? You cannot trap people determined to hedge their bets on both sides. Recruits like that will falter and put us in danger underground sooner or later, whether they leave today or tomorrow. He slung his black rock pickaxe back over his shoulder, his tone cold and unyielding. This mining zone does not lack idle mouths to feed. We lack people willing to commit fully to our rules and stand with us through every risk. Lin Tingxia finished writing the final entries and pressed her palm flat over the registration log. For the first time, she did not think her brother's measures overly harsh. She fully grasped his strategy now. By sharing those 3 tunnel safety lessons today, he had not acted out of kindness. He was sorting through the crowd, separating those truly desperate to survive from those only seeking easy handouts. As dusk fell, the 7-person primary work crew received their official postings. 2 sentries assigned to the mine shaft, 1 guard for the water supply lines, 2 were haulers, and 2 apprentices to follow Lin Yan on tunnel scouting runs. With their original 4 core members added on, the first mining district no longer had to scrape by relying on just a handful of people. But when Zhou Xiaoman returned from the outer perimeter, her expression was far from relaxed. The Qinzhou Resources group hasn't disbanded. They brought out even more supplies just now. This time it's not just water rations, they're handing out compressed biscuits and brand new ropes too. She lifted her gaze to Lin Yan, her eyes sharp yet tight with tension. You've only just started recruiting people, and they're already gearing up for a direct showdown. Early the next morning, Qinzhou Resources' supply stall had expanded drastically. The night before, they'd only had a single bucket of water. Now there were 3 more plastic water barrels, 2 bundles of fresh rope for packs of compressed biscuits, plus lightweight waist-mounted lamp hooks laid out for anyone to take. With those supplies spread across the ground, even the surrounding air felt heavy with tension. What did unattached scavengers fear most? Hunger, thirst, and being left without reliable gear. Everything Qinzhou Resources put out struck straight at their most basic survival needs. Stick with us, and you'll get supplies right away. Anyone looking to head down the mine shafts will have a spot tonight. Unlike some people who hoard safe passage routes and treat you all as disposable labor to test the dangerous paths. A few quiet murmurs rose from the onlookers outside. The voices were soft, yet they cut sharply through the air. Lin Tingxia paused mid-pour as she doled out water, her hands freezing for a split second. Zhou Xiaoman was far less restrained, rolling her eyes openly. Such loose tongues from that lot. Donglin stared at the water barrels lined up on the outer perimeter, his frown deepening by the second. At this rate, we're bound to lose several of our people by the end of the day. Some will leave, Lin Yan agreed. He squatted beside a stone barrier, sharpening the edge of his black rock pickaxe. But not all of them. A handful will run over to test what Qinzhou's offering first. Most others are still watching and waiting. What exactly are they waiting to see? Zhou Xiaoman asked. Whether following me is worth their while. Lin Yan propped the pickaxe upright, brushing flecks of black grit off its blade with his thumb. Supplies are handed out on the spot over there. But having reliable, traversable mine passages is what will keep them alive long-term. His tone was calm, yet unease rippled steadily through the outer perimeter all the same. Some people finished registering with Lin Tingxia, only to circle over to Qinzhou Resources' stall afterward. Two porters who joined their group the previous day huddled in a corner whispering. Their conversation full of remarks about learning all the route tricks first and hearing out both sides can't hurt. Fuming, Zhou Xiaoman was about to storm over and confront them, but Lin Yan held out a hand to stop her. Now is not the time for arguments. When will the right time come then? When they publicly reveal how ill-equipped they truly are. Zhou Xiaoman blinked in confusion. Lin Yan said no more, his gaze drifting to a half-collapsed narrow fissure at the rear side of the first mining district. That was where he'd held his public route demonstration the night prior. Further inside ran a temporary transport path, narrow, pitch black, and riddled with unstable rock collapses, usually only navigated by seasoned veterans who stuck close to the safe edges. He'd barely kept his eyes fixed on that spot when disaster struck without warning. A low, muffled boom echoed through the tunnels. It wasn't loud, but it carried a heavy weight of danger. Shouts of panic immediately spilled out from within the fissure. Someone's trapped inside. A leg's pinned under rock. Where are the ropes? Hurry up with the ropes. Chaos erupted across the outer perimeter. The Qinzhou Resources staff passing out water snapped their heads toward the commotion at once. A man in a gray windbreaker called out first. Who do those trapped people belong to? How many are stuck inside? A voice shouted back from the front of the crowd. 3 people, carrying 2 sacks of ore. The one furthest in is pinned beneath fallen rock debris. The gray-jacketed man parted his lips to respond, yet his feet never moved an inch forward. His companions were even more hesitant. After a quick glance toward the fissure, they stepped backward instinctively. Collapsed fissures carried the deadly risk of secondary rockfalls. Many were quick to shout offers of help, yet almost no one dared be the first to venture into the unstable passage. Zhou Xiaoman whipped her head toward Lin Yan. This is it, she said. She wasn't talking about the mining accident. She meant their chance to prove their worth. Lin Yan was already standing upright. Donglin, take 2 men and secure the main safety rope. Tingxia, clear a staging area, count everyone present, and get fresh water ready. Xiaoman, rally the group. Zhou Xiaoman's eyes lit up instantly. What should I tell them? Make it clear for everyone to hear. Lin Yan turned to face all the onlookers on the outer perimeter, his voice cutting through the noise to reach every ear. I'll only explain this once. This passage can still be used right now, but only for this single rescue mission. Anyone wanting to learn how to navigate these tunnels, watch closely. His words drew far more attention than any shouting match ever could. The crowd that had swarmed the supply stall moments before all spun around as one. Even the Qinzhou Resources staff edged a couple steps closer, unable to look away. Lin Yan gave them no time to process the scene, barking out clear orders without delay. First rule, do not step on the central crack, stick to the solid stone ridge on the left. Second, do not draw deep breaths when passing collapsed sections. Wait for loose stone dust to settle before moving forward. Third, halt immediately if you hear rock powder showering down from above, no rushing ahead. As he spoke, he ducked down and slipped into the fissure first. Donglin followed second, hauling the heavy safety rope over his shoulder. The 2 porters trailing behind him had sweaty palms, yet they forced themselves to follow. The fissure was cramped and suffocating. Overhead layers of fractured rock looked ready to cave in at any second. Lin Yan tapped the left tunnel wall twice with his knuckles, avoiding the straight, seemingly clear path to circle around a jagged outward ledge that looked far more precarious at first glance. One glance was all Donglin needed to understand his reasoning. A massive slab of loose rock hung, suspended directly above the straight route. Though the detour along the ledge was narrower, it was reinforced with ancient supporting stone beams. Deep within the fissure, the trapped group came into view. One porter's leg was half crushed beneath fallen rubble. His face drained ashen gray. His 2 companions held him steady, one clutching their sack, neither daring to shift an inch. Stop screaming. Lin Yin ordered sharply the moment he reached them. Follow my instructions exactly. The man with the pinned legs' lips trembled, but he bit back his cries instantly. Lin Yin knelt down to examine how the rock had clamped his leg. It wasn't a complete crush trap, but lifting the stone wrist triggering the surrounding layers to slide down as well. He brushed away fine gray dust along the rock's edge, then tapped the stone lightly with the handle of his pickaxe to test its stability. He Donglin, brace yourself to assist me. He Donglin planted his feet firmly to bear weight. The rest of you too, carry the ore sacks out first, retreat halfway back along the main rope. No pushing or crowding each other. Their hands shook violently as they moved, yet they dared not dawdle. The onlookers outside the narrow fissure could not make out every word spoken within, only watching the safety rope shift and slide backward inch by inch. A Chinjo Resources staff member muttered under his breath. He's actually going in there. The gray-jacketed man wore a grim expression and said nothing in reply. The next second, Lin Yan's low shout echoed through the fissure. He and He Donglin pushed upward in unison. The heavy stone pinning the leg tilted open a narrow gap. The trapped man's face contorted in agony, yet he gritted his teeth and held back screams. Pull your leg free, quickly. The man wrenched his leg outward, nearly stumbling over as he lurched forward. Lin Yin grabbed the back of his tunic to steady him, while He Donglin hauled him backward to safety. A shower of loose gray rock dust crashed down from the collapsed ledge right after, yet no further caving occurred. Their risky maneuver had succeeded. The crowd watching outside held their collective breath. Next came the slow retreat back through the fissure. Lin Yin refused to let the rescued men stumble out on their own. He ordered the two uninjured trapped workers to support their hurt companion, bringing up the rear himself, while He Donglin guided their progress from the front, one careful segment at a time. Avoid the central crack. Keep your eyes fixed on the safety rope. Pause to let dust settle. Now move. His voice was soft, yet unshakably steady. Even the onlookers outside the fissure found themselves tensing their shoulders unconsciously, following his unspoken rhythm. When the first figure finally stumbled out of the fissure's mouth, Zhou Xiaoman shouted triumphantly. One out safely. Lin Tingxiao responded instantly. Mark his name down in the log. Two more still inside. The second, then the third worker emerged. Finally, both sacks of ore were dragged out as well. Not a single person or ounce of ore lost. Silence blanketed the outer perimeter for a heartbeat, before a roar of astonished chatter burst forth. They really brought everyone back out alive. Even the ore sacks didn't get left behind. This is what a proper route guide looks like. The young porter who'd been pinned sat shakily on the ground, lifting his head to meet Lin Yan's gaze. Brother Lin, he said quietly, I'm sticking with you from now on. His voice was soft, yet every person nearby heard the vow clearly. The other two rescued men wasted no time either. Gasping for breath, they dragged their ore sack straight toward Lin Tingxia's registration station. Sign us up right now. Add our names to the roster this minute. Zhou Xiaoman nearly clapped with delight. She turned toward the Chinjo Resources group and raised her voice loud enough for all to hear. Finished passing out your water yet? Even once you hand out all your supplies, it won't make a difference. Water runs out eventually and leaves you helpless, but mastering safe mine passages is what keeps you alive long-term. Suppressed laughter rippled through the outer perimeter crowd. The laughter itself was not the critical part. What mattered was the weight of favor that had once leaned heavily toward Chinjo Resources shifting away in that moment. The gray-jacketed man's expression turned darker still. He stared at Lin Yin for 2 long seconds, yet could not bring himself to utter a single threatening retort. He had no grounds to argue. The rescue just now had laid bare the vast divide between their two factions. Chinjo Resources handed out temporary supplies. Lin Yin gave people a sustainable way to survive. The contrast was plain for all to see. There was no need for further debate over which side offered more value. Lin Yin brushed rock dust off his sleeve, preparing to turn away, when a sudden warm tingle spread across his palm. The vein resonance recorder embedded beneath his skin vibrated faintly. The sensation was barely noticeable, as if an invisible presence had traced the same safe passage over and over again alongside him. He did not pull out the recorder for all to see, simply folding his hand at his side. Cognitive recognition wait, he realized. The warmth faded quickly, yet it deepened the sharp glint in his eyes. Public demonstrations of tunnel navigation were not merely a way to recruit new followers. They also fed power to his unique recorder. Zhou Xiaoman stepped close, lowering her voice to a whisper. You felt that surge again, didn't you? A faint trace of it. Is that a good sign? For the moment, yes. He fell silent, his gaze drifting past the crowd toward the deeper blackness at the rear of the mining zone. Shinjo Resources had lost the opening round of their battle to win recruits that day. Cornered and desperate, they would no longer rely solely on supply stalls, empty taunts, and free water handouts. They would set their sights on seizing something far more vital: deeper mine passages, critical transport junctions, and the single key choke point that could cripple the first mining district entirely. Sure enough, as dusk fell, Zhou Xiaoman returned from scouting outside with fresh intelligence. Shinjo Resources is mobilizing their men. They're moving their crew toward the abandoned west side mine tunnel. She licked her cracked, parched lips, her eyes blazing with sharp alertness. This time, it looks like they intend to seize control of that passage for themselves. The intelligence Zhou Xiaoman brought back was confirmed the very next morning by Lin Tingxia's ledgers. It was no stroke of fortune on her part. The moment their group's numbers swelled, every structural flaw plaguing the mining district became glaringly obvious. The water supply line kept clogging up, or transport created constant bottlenecks at the main mine entrance. New recruits all crowded along the single primary passage. Even minor rock dust slides brought the entire line to a standstill. Lin Tingxia handed a page of fresh handwritten logs to Lin Yan. Since last night, we've cycled through 3 full batches of purified water barrels. Our transport caused 5 major blockages at the mine entrance. We've relocated the casualty treatment zone twice already, and we still don't have enough space. She frowned as she spoke, growing concerned by the minute. This was no longer a simple matter of disorganization. Their single existing passage could not support the growing population long term. So the abandoned west tunnel you mentioned last night is a passage we have to secure? We have to claim it, Lin Yan replied, folding the ledger page and fixing his gaze on the collapsed west mining zone. That stretch had not yielded rich ore in his past life, but it held something far more precious. A second functional passage, a backup supply route, an emergency evacuation path, and a guarantee that the first mining district would never be completely cut off during her surges. Donglin grasped the significance instantly. I'll lead a squad to go with you. It will take more than a small squad, Lin Yan said, glancing at the new recruits working across the outer perimeter. We bring the new crew along on this mission. They need to understand they are defending the entire mining district, not just one single mine entrance. His words made several newly assigned porters tense up. They had witnessed Lin Yan's tunnel navigation skills the day before, yet the prospect of venturing into such hazardous terrain stirred fresh anxiety. A thin young man swallowed hard. Are we really going to fight them for control of that abandoned tunnel? Everyone writes it off as unusable rubble, after all. Passages everyone discards are the ones no one bothers to guard, Lin Yan replied, gesturing toward the collapsed west zone. Shinjo Resources aims to seize that choke point. If they claim the tunnel first, every drop of water, every sack of or transported, and every emergency evacuation will depend entirely on their mercy. No further questions followed. Every person present understood the stakes now. This was not merely claiming an extra travel route. It was securing their survival. Lin Yan wasted no time finalizing their team roster. Donglin, Old Ma, 2 newly recruited porters, plus a quick-footed, steady-handed scout to accompany them. Zhou Xiaoman would not venture deep into the tunnels. She would station herself at the halfway marker to relay scouting updates. Lin Tingxiao remained behind to guard their base, pre-stocking water, spare rope, backup lamps, and marking clear retreat signals along every route. Before they departed, she pressed a coil of thin signal rope into Lin Yan's palm. If the situation turns hostile, do not force a confrontation. Fall back first. We can fight to reclaim the tunnel another day. Lin Yan met her eyes and took the rope. I understand. Though he'd given his word, every member of the group drew in a sharp breath when they reached the abandoned west collapsed zone. The passage ahead barely qualified as a usable path at all. The tunnel walls caved inward sharply, with a slanted stone beam spanning the center. Beneath the beam yawned a pitch-black chasm of unknown depth, while loose rock fragments hung, suspended overhead, ready to rain down at any moment. Worst of all was the erratic airflow. Gusts alternately sucked inward and billowed outward in irregular surges, as if the mountain itself was heaving for breath. The 2 new porters slowed their steps, hesitation heavy in their movements. Brother Lin, is this stretch even traversable? Lin Yan did not answer immediately. He knelt to run his fingers across the layer of dust covering the ground, dry and stable. He tapped the tunnel wall with his knuckles next, solid stone to the left, hollow empty space to the right. Closing his eyes briefly, he listened to the echoing wind within the rock before speaking. It can be crossed safely, but we must hug the far left wall the entire way. The seemingly flat central beam sits above hollow voids, and the right side's chaotic airflow triggers constant rock dust falls from the ceiling. He Donglin turned to the recruits behind them. You all heard him, stick strictly to the left wall. Anyone who rushes ahead, even a single step, will be hauled back by me personally. His sharp order quelled the nervous unrest rippling through the group. Before they could set foot on the narrow safe ledge, Zhou Xiaomon's low warning carried forward from the halfway marker. Hostiles incoming. A large group of them. Lin Yan did not turn his head. Perfect timing. Seconds later, lamplight flickered to life at the opposite end of the tunnel. Qinzhou Resources' crew had arrived as well. Their leader was the same gray-jacketed man who'd run the supply stall the day before, flanked by 7 or 8 burly laborers armed with short mining picks and long iron hooks, clearly ready to assert control through force. When the two groups met face to face, neither side offered polite greetings. The gray-jacketed man forced a thin smile. Lin Yan, you move fast. The same to you, Lin Yan replied, standing upright and striking the base of his black rock pickaxe against the stone floor. Have you come to mine, or walk straight into a fatal collapse? The smile faded from the gray-jacketed man's face. It's just an abandoned tunnel. Whoever crosses to the far end first earns the right to claim it. I agree, Lin Yan nodded. Then you go first. The men behind the gray jacket stiffened instantly. They were eager to compete for control, yet none dared take the first step into such obvious danger. Having traveled all this way, the gray-jacketed man could not afford to back down publicly. Jaw tight with frustration, he raised an arm and barked an order. Move forward. A burly laborer under his command immediately stepped onto the wide-looking central stone beam. His first step held steady. As soon as his second foot landed, a dull hollow rumble echoed up from beneath the beam. The laborer's face paled in terror. He tried to retreat, yet the ground beneath his feet split open along a thin line of crumbling dust. Freeze, Lin Yan snapped sharply. The laborer stiffened instinctively. The gray-jacketed man tensed up as well. No one had expected Lin Yan to speak up and warn their rival worker. Lin Yan did not spare them a glance. His gaze locked solely on the man's trapped feet. Do not lift your right foot. Shift your torso half an inch to the left. Brace both hands against the tunnel wall and back away slowly. The laborer followed every instruction, streams of sweat pouring down his forehead. He finally stumbled back to safety, and the moment he cleared the beam, a large section of the flat stone crumbled away entirely, exposing a chasm wide enough to swallow an adult whole. A heavy silence fell over Qinzhou Resources' crew. One more hurried step forward, and that laborer would have plummeted into the void. The gray-jacketed man's jaw clenched hard, his composure shattered beyond repair. You knew this would happen all along. I am not standing here to waste time answering pointless questions, Lin Yan retorted, turning to walk along the narrow left wall ledge. He Donglin, follow my lead. The rest of you step only on the marked rope anchor points. Do not look down into the chasm. His first step landed feather light on the stone. His second step, by contrast, pressed down firmly, deliberately compacting loose rock to reinforce the support beneath his feet. He Donglin observed the pattern closely and copied his movements exactly. The new recruits behind them had their hearts pounding in their throats, yet watching Lin Yan and He Donglin cross steadily, they forced their fear aside and pressed onward. The left wall was rough-textured, offering solid handholds for balance. The stone ridge beneath their feet was narrow, yet completely stable. When they reached the most precarious stretch, a shower of loose ceiling dust came crashing down without warning. Lin Yan raised a hand at once. Stop! Every single person froze in place. Only once the dust settled completely did he utter a single quiet command. Proceed. The stark difference between Lin Yan's controlled navigation and Qinzhou's reckless rush was laid bare for all to witness. Up until this point, the new recruits had only known Lin Yan was skilled at reading safe tunnel routes. Now they truly understood what it meant to guide a group safely through lethal terrain. Once all his crew reached the far side, Lin Yan hammered a pre-prepared rope hook into an ancient support beam, tying a strip of red cloth around it as a clear marker. Their first official territory marker was set. From that moment onward, this tunnel belonged to the 1st Mining District as their dedicated supply passage. The gray-jacketed man's expression had turned dark with rage and defeat. He clearly intended to copy Lin Yan's safe path, yet the near disaster on the central beam had shattered his men's courage entirely. Before Lin Yan and his crew could depart, one of Qinzhou's subordinates gritted his teeth and attempted to follow along the left wall ledge. First step, second step, steady enough. On his third step, he ignored Lin Yan's measured pause and compress rhythm, leaning his weight forward in a reckless hurry. A sharp cracking sound cut through the air. The rock layer beside his hand split open instantly. The man lurched sideways, teetering toward the chasm. Chaos erupted on Chinzhou's side as men scrambled to grab and steady him, shouting panicked curses all the while. Luckily, they hauled him back before he fell, yet the incident spoke volumes. Lin Yan paid them no further attention, turning to venture deeper toward a critical transport junction further inside the tunnel. That section was far more spacious than they'd anticipated. An abandoned side branch stretched horizontally outward, connecting smoothly to a gentler or transport slope on the far side. This single link was all they needed. With this secondary passage secured, the first mining district would no longer be trapped relying solely on one overcrowded mine entrance. Just as Lin Yan hammered the second rope anchor into a wall crevice, a dense cascade of low, resonant rumbling echoed up through the bedrock beneath their feet. It was not just one isolated tremor. Murmurs had already broken out among the outer circle. If only they'd hand out water uniformly. At least we wouldn't have to crowd every single day. Getting assigned zones via rosters beats being stuck out here forever. That was exactly how ruthless their tactic was. They preyed on everyone's greatest fears, chaos and resource shortages, to seize full control and impose their own set of rules over this settlement. He Donglin's gaze turned icy, and he stepped forward to intervene, only for Lin Yan to hold him back with a raised hand. Finished talking? The man smiled faintly. This isn't a threat. It's a chance for you to back down with dignity. Lin Yan stared at him, then cracked a cold smile of his own. Dignity? He took 2 strides forward until he stood directly in front of the posted document. Your paper talks about shared travel routes, standardized supply distribution, and zone entry by official roster. Let me ask you one thing. Who volunteers to test all of this first? The smile on the man's face stiffened slightly. The scattered whispers rippling through the outer crowd cut off instantly. Lin Yan kept his tone flat and unwavering as he fixed his eyes on the man. Who will be the first to scout these routes? Who dares venture into untested wind tunnels ahead of everyone else? Who will cross sections prone to cave-ins first? Why isn't a single word about that written on your sheet? The man quickly smoothed over his sharpened expression. Someone always has to go first. That is the cost of maintaining order. Cost. Lin Yan took the paper from his grasp and glanced down at its contents. You make it sound so trivial. I've seen this trick countless times in my past life. They round up the desperate people clinging to survival, send them straight into deadly dead ends. Once those unfortunates clear out all the hidden dangers, they sell the safe passages back to others for a price. You people never aim to let everyone live. What you crave is the power to decide who gets to survive first. His final statement hung heavy in the air, and countless faces in the outer circle paled with understanding. They had finally grasped the truth. This dispute was never merely about who distributed drinking water. It was a fight over who held the power to sentence others to die first. The man's eyes darkened completely. Mr. Lin, your words are unnecessarily harsh. Harsh. Lin Yan flicked the paper sharply. Then I'll rephrase it in gentler terms. Starting today, 3 rules govern this first safe zone. Registration, contribution, obedience. Anyone wishing entry to the inner circle must answer to my ledgers, cross my barriers, and travel the paths I've secured. Keep your system, one that hoards safe escape routes for a privileged few, far away from us. As he finished speaking, he raised his hands and tore the document clean down the middle. A crisp ripping sound echoed out. It was not a loud noise, yet it sliced straight through the crowd's lingering hesitation. As the scraps fluttered to the ground, Zhou Xiaoman was the first to let out a sharp laugh. Now do you all understand? We don't accept bribes or under-the-table arrangements here. Old Ma and Aja pushed the wooden barrier poles forward another step in unison. The boundaries separating the middle and outer circles grew far clearer. The man stared at the torn half-sheet lying on the ground, all trace of his smile vanishing from his face. Still, he did not fly into a rage. He simply nodded once. Very well. If you insist on abiding by your own rules, then stand firm by them. From now on, it won't just be a few barrels of water that get cut off from your zone. He swept his gaze across the mine entrance, the water supply pipeline, and the newly opened western passage. Ventilation, fresh water, escape routes. You will inevitably lose control of one of them first. With that, he turned and left. His 2 silent bodyguards followed close behind him. The crowd in the outer circle instinctively stepped aside to make way, yet no one leaned toward his group as they had moments before. The truth had been laid bare for all to hear. The resources provided by Chinzhou Group offered no true stability. It only forced people to surrender their lifelines in exchange for a temporary reprieve from death. Once the 3 men had vanished entirely from sight, Zhou Xiaoman let out a long breath. They sure know how to spin persuasive words. I almost found myself ready to cheer for them. Donglin watched the lingering crowd in the outer circle, his voice low and grim. He told one unvarnished truth. Next, they won't merely restrict our water supply. Lin Tingxiao pressed down the wind-tousled registration notebook and spoke quietly. Which area should we reinforce first today? Lin Yin turned to look at the three newly drawn boundary layers surrounding the mine entrance. The first safe zone now had official boundaries, defined divisions, and its first real threshold of entry. But erecting this barrier also showed outsiders exactly where to target their attacks. His gaze drifted from the water pipeline to the new passage, then swept over the crowd in the outer circle. Each face etched with a different mix of anxiety and uncertainty. First, we watch for anyone inside our zone secretly aiding them. Zhou Xiaoman's eye sharpened. You mean there are people within our settlement passing information to their side? Lin Yin did not answer her directly. Instead, he bent down to pick up one half of the torn paper that had escaped being trampled. An old embossed seal on the corner glinted faintly black in the morning light. Gu Chenzhou's faction was already publicly imposing their terms for all to witness. Their next move would not stop at pressuring us from outside the zone. They would scheme to undo our defenses from within.